Coming to you from high atop our studios in the San Francisco Bay Area, you're listening to Tech Move. This is episode 48. Today's show is all about the 2019 NAB show that happened back in April. We get to talk to the fine folks at Blackmagic Design, Atomos, ErgoRig, and Z CAM, and see what each has to offer at this year's show. I'm Rod Louie, and with me is Keith Moreau. Get ready. It's time for another exciting episode of Tech Move. Let's go! Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tech Move. I am Rod Louie, and with me, as always, the vivacious and attractive Keith Moreau. Keith, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm just refreshing my lipstick here.
Very good. Very good. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me apologize to the Tech Move Nation for our absence. It's been a little while since our last episode. I want to say quite possibly 2007, 2008. Keith, would that be accurate?
I'm sorry, I kind of blanked out for a second. Could you repeat that?
No, it was so long ago you had to actually get the calculator out to figure out when our last episode was. I was just saying, Keith, that it's been a little while since our last episode.
Oh, yeah, 2000... It was actually earlier this year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no,
it's been a while.
I'm glad that you're covering me up on that, but you know what? I will take the hit for it, ladies and gentlemen. I've been under a tremendous amount of personal duties. One of which I had to move the Rod Louie Tech Move Studios to another city altogether. And no, it's not because I'm evading the law, but it is simply because I wanted to move to a new, more spacious, more luxurious studio settings. Because you know what, ladies and gentlemen, Tech Move Nation needs Rod Louie at his absolute best. So I want to thank you for your patience on that. I will be sharing with you in the future some fantastic new things that I incorporated into the new studio, but I'll do that at a later time, only because, Keith, so much has transpired since our last episode, of which is the special NAB 2019 episode that we're recording for today. Mm-hmm. Yes, NAB has been over for probably now months, but it's okay. You know what? Because there's still some things that are very relevant with regards to NAB 2019. So, Keith, you're going to be taking us on a magical mystery tour of NAB 2019. We've got a lot of great interviews that Keith has conducted for us. He has been our man out on the street, and we will be getting to that throughout this particular episode. But because there has been some major news lately, we do want to touch on this during this long intro segment that we usually like to do here on Tech Move. And that is a very recently announced new kitchen implement / computing implement. And that is known as the new Apple product called the Mac Pro. Keith, this thing looks like a cheese grater. It looks like alien eyes. It's, although I would imagine at first look at it, you probably were fairly excited because it had to remind you of the Mac Pro that you so loved so dearly from a few years back. Give me an initial response when you just kind of saw some pictures about it.
Initial response is looked a little bit like a rolling stand that I might put some you go to the hairdresser.
Yes.
And there are those chromed metal stands that they put their stuff on.
Correct.
Looks a little bit like that.
That's a very good illustration. Very, very good. Very good.
It looks functional. It looks kind of like an updated or a retro version of the old Mac Pro. I guess it doesn't have as many super sharp handles, which is good because the handles in the original Mac Pros were pretty sharp, and they usually weighed about 60 pounds. So you were just you could possibly cut your fingers while you were actually carrying it. This one you won't cut your fingers.
It has lovely little rounded chrome handles on it, and
yes.
I think it'd be safe to say that unlike the trash can Mac Pro that we've seen over the last few years, this one is very much like a good old fashioned tower desktop. Would you go with me on that one?
I think this is definitely a take on the traditional tower.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how they are able to fit so many slots in there and still be functional and still have a power supply. So they've done some good miniaturization of some components in there. Because I don't know what the dimensions are, but I don't think it's any bigger than the old Mac Pro. I'm talking about the old cheese grater Mac Pro, not the trash can.
Right.
The trash can was tiny, but
trash can was tiny.
Yeah.
Trash can was really, really tiny. But this one at least gives that great illusion of being able to maybe fiddle around with it yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I have no idea if that's true or not, though.
Well, the thing that's kind of cool about it, it's actually got 8 PCI slots, which is 4 more than the previous cheese grater Mac Pro. So that makes it, just having those 8 slots makes it more expandable. So that part's good.
Yeah.
They have their own modules that use up some of those slots. So they have these, I guess they'd be the equivalent of two double slot wide modules. So they kind of take up the equivalent of maybe 4 slots. But I think there's a total of 4 double wide slots in here. Double wide slots are the ones that you put the graphics cards into because they're much wider than a single PCI card. So they're those big, thick ones that are like an inch thick, and like the ones that we're talking about, like the Nvidias and the ATIs and those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So the fact that it has 8 slots is pretty cool. And then Apple supposedly is coming out with some accelerator modules you can put in that are supposed to be amazing, kind of like super graphics cards.
Yeah.
Their own versions of them. And then I think you could just use your own graphics cards if you wanted to. So yeah, there's these Apple MPX modules, they're called. So they're kind of like they're a PCI based, and I think they take up two double wide slots. And have you seen the pictures of the opened chassis?
I'm looking at it right now, and I mean the you could do MPX modules with up to 4 GPUs. You could do 2 of these MPX modules with up to 4 GPUs.
Yeah.
They're offering AMD Radeon Pro 580Xs or Radeon Pro Vega 2s.
Yes.
Or Vega 2 Duos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that there's more options to this than the car that I bought. I mean, I think there are more options for this Mac Pro than anything. I mean, like starting from 8 core up to 28 core.
Mm-hmm.
And, my gracious, the choices, you better get the order form correctly. Otherwise, one thing, you're going to goof it all up.
Yeah. And again, there's sweet spots. You could pay a lot more and maybe not get that much more performance depending on what you're doing. Like just in general, a lot of apps don't even really use the multi-processors that well. They're more of just about raw clock speed on the board.
Yep.
So you have to kind of decide, do I want to get the high clock speed model and less CPUs, or do I need all that parallel processing at once, like doing, render farm type stuff.
Yeah.
But I could see these being sold to render farms. I could see this being an amazing, purchase for those guys and professionals, like professional corporations or companies that specialize in rendering and high-end graphics. You slapping in a few of these Apple proprietary modules and then ready to go.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, there's a kind of a little bit of a war going on between NVIDIA and Apple right now. And I'm not sure exactly. I don't know all the details of it, but I think that there was some disagreement they had a little while ago, and then Apple is just very slow to accept NVIDIA, and they don't include a lot of NVIDIA technology in their stuff, their default systems. They're using AMD now for everything.
Yeah.
And so it would be really great to get, but I think that NVIDIA has a better bang for the buck, in like the PC world.
Right.
I think people buy them more for performance than they would AMD products. I think they're just a little bit behind AMD. So that's a little unfortunate. But at the same time, I do remember all those crashes and everything I would have all the time when I had NVIDIA cards running in my system. And some of it was because of CUDA. So I don't remember one episode we said I just removed all the CUDA drivers from my system. I still had an NVIDIA card in it, but just was not using CUDA, and everything ran really well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So I would love to be able to still do that, put an NVIDIA card in, but not use CUDA. But I don't even know that's for the modern OSs. I don't even know if that works very well. So anyway,
some of the things that I notice here. Okay, so there are a bunch. One big thing here is the PCI Express. It's an Afterburner ProRes RAW accelerator card. That it has. Is that something that interests you?
It might, if I was using ProRes RAW a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not using it a ton right now. Just because the only things that record in ProRes RAW are Atomos devices.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily record ProRes RAW on those all the time. I have devices that record RAW natively in the cameras, like my C200s, my Canon C200s record a kind of similar to ProRes RAW called Canon RAW Lite, and it's kind of the same, similar sizes and I think performance to it. And then I have Blackmagic cameras that record Blackmagic RAW. So, and I do have a couple Atomos recorders that record ProRes RAW as well. I have a Inferno and a Sumo.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't do a lot of ProRes RAW recording on those.
Interesting.
Kind of a novelty, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember it from a few years ago that ProRes was everything, and
ProRes is.
It everything. Is.
Yeah, ProRes, the regular form of ProRes.
Yeah.
ProRes 422 or ProRes 422 HQ. Those are still used kind of universally in everything. All professional systems and post-production houses use them, and even like our ARRI cameras can record to ProRes, that form of ProRes. But there's not there. I don't think Apple ProRes has quite caught fire like regular ProRes at this point.
Right.
Because the reason is that these different camera companies they don't really want to record in ProRes RAW.
Yeah.
They want to record in their own version of ProRes. I mean own version of RAW. Their kind of own accelerated smaller version of RAW that is kind of analogous to ProRes RAW. So yeah, so I don't think that Apple was quite anticipating that. I think they were thinking that everybody was just gonna, all the camera makers, like Blackmagic and maybe even Canon and ARRI and all these people, maybe even Red, we're gonna start recording in ProRes RAW, and they're not. They're recording to their own versions of RAW. So I think that threw a little wrench in it.
Yeah.
So I've recorded in ProRes RAW just in a way kind of to test it out, and I like it a lot. I think it's great. But I don't think it's much better than, or any better than Blackmagic RAW or Canon RAW, though.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think it's even smaller. I don't think you're getting anything out of it that those other proprietary camera-based systems have. So that's my own take on that.
Right.
So yeah, but it's okay because you can do other. I'm sure that their magic encoding boxes that they're going to come out with are going to accelerate other codecs as well, not just ProRes RAW. The thing too about ProRes RAW is it doesn't. I don't think it needs that much acceleration. Like I think it's one of the things that's great about it is it's pretty CPU non-intensive compared to like H.264 or high efficiency H.265. I don't think it actually uses for the equivalent amount of resolution. I think it's like lower CPU usage than those really compressed formats. So now they should tell us how many streams of H.265 it can do. Then we'll get some specs going. Then we'll see.
Right. I mean, all this is great, right? All these specs and everything that they're going to offer. That's all terrific. But let's see the production version of it, and let's run some real world tests on it, and then we'll see what happens.
Yes.
They mention here, this is all great. 2 USB 3 ports. They got 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, 2 10 gigabit Ethernet ports. For the life of me, why would you need 2 Ethernet ports?
Actually, that's somewhat common these days.
Is it?
Yeah. It's
not for me, though. Not for me.
Yeah. Are they the gigabit Ethernet or are they the higher than that?
Gigabit.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says here.
Okay.
Support for 10 gigabit Ethernet performance.
10 gigabit.
10, right, 10 gigabit.
Yeah, not
Ethernet.
1 gigabit.
No,
okay, yeah.
10 over copper cabling.
Yeah, so that's actually a big deal now because nowadays, instead of using these big thick, like Thunderbolt cables even are kind of thick compared to, and you can't run them that long compared to Ethernet cables. So now you can wire up studios and have multiple computers running, and you basically use IP to do it. So you can use Ethernet cables for that. So you might need one Ethernet cable for your regular network, and then you can use the other Ethernet cable for your computer editing network.
Yeah.
And send video, or some form of video over these. Still using IP protocols, so still kind of like a network, or you can multiplex them. And so it's actually a pretty good way. And a lot of NAS devices, and SAN devices now use this 10 gigabit Ethernet. So you're getting really fast hard drive speed.
Yep.
Kind of like almost like a direct connected device,
Mm-hmm.
but you're just doing it over Ethernet.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand that, and that's pretty cool because that's a good way to interface with storage devices. So that makes sense, and I got that on my iMac Pro, and that works pretty well.
Excellent.
So the question is, how many people are going to be buying these? Like how many normal people are going to be buying these? Because I think
Well, before we dive into that question, let's talk about some prices here first.
Right.
Of which I'm trying to desperately look for prices. I don't know if you have them off your...
I kind of have some prices, but I don't have the full price spec sheet.
Let me see if I can get one here.
Yeah, you give me a link if you can tell me what the difference. I don't know if they even have them out there. I know that it starts at $6,000.
Yes. I don't think we have a real price sheet yet. Yeah, bear with me. Yeah, I mean, it's you know what's so funny is that, okay, here, maybe this might have something to do with it. Here, let's take a look. Here, let me message this to you. Keith, I'll message this to you over Skype here. Maybe. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, these are all guesses. There hasn't been anything that's I think set in stone or anything like that. I think these are just good educated guesses that we could kind of find out there that you guys could find just as easily.
So you're sending me.
I sent you
You sent me something just now.
Yeah. I just sent you something just now.
I was trying to find out how to read chat and Skype.
Oh,
Found it.
you found it? Oh, sorry about that. I should have done it through message. Sorry.
I saw the notification. I was like, how do I read this? Okay, yeah.
So, well, I think you're right in your original assessment. I think the Mac Pro on its own, let's not, I don't think anything is low level on it, but the most basically equipped Mac Pro that you can buy is supposedly going to start at about $6,000 for a base model.
Yes.
We're talking, extra features like the motherboard, a power supply, a heat sink, a cooling system, the chassis, and all that kind of good stuff. $6,000. Okay. $6,000 right there. Mm-hmm. And then in that next section, Keith, if you're looking at that, 120 gigabytes worth of RAM sticks, DDR4s.
Yes.
Is that a real price right there? Is that a real price?
It is, but there's very few people are going to want that much RAM.
Okay.
That's like 1.2 terabytes or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or 1.5 terabytes. So even though the Mac Pro can actually accept 1.5 terabytes of RAM,
nobody's going to use it.
Very few normal people are going to spend $17,000 for that much RAM.
17.8, Keith. So it's closer to 18,000.
Okay, 18,000.
Right.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
But yes, 18,000 for But if you need the RAM and you're doing something that needs that much RAM professionally, it might be worth it.
Right.
Because maybe by using one job and all that RAM, you're saving 3 days of work, and you can charge them $10,000 a day. And just in one job, you've made your money back on that RAM. So it's all about, cost versus benefit.
Right.
So all these kind of things that seem really expensive to us, because the people that are benefiting from these super high-end technologies are the ones that can afford to pay for it because it's their business.
Right.
Because it's a pro.
Right.
So I think what we're coming up against is that, the PC market forever has been commoditized. Even though the architectures are very similar between the Mac Pros and the PCs, sometimes they take their designs from Intel themselves and just modify them a bit. There's a difference because you may be a professional and you might use a PC, and you might even spend a lot of money on a super high-end PC, like HP or some really professional one, and you might get a really good, reliable system. But then you could also potentially buy this Mac Pro or even the previous Mac Pros and have a really reliable, somewhat expensive system, and they cannot be matched, really.
Yeah.
By even going in the PC world. And even if you did go in the PC world, it might still be super expensive if you had that same spec. And that's always been the issue with Apple's, is like they're actually not that much more expensive than PCs when you use the same exact spec. If you want to get like a lower spec, like higher CPU gigahertz, then you can get a much cheaper PC and maybe even get more performance out of it. But it's not the same computer. It's a different kind of computer. It might actually perform better, but it's not necessarily professional because it doesn't have redundant memory and high-end components that won't break under pressure and stuff like that. So,
there are a lot of different prices on this page, as you can see. I'm only going to hit some that really stand out. Let's talk about these GPUs, these Radeon Pros. The price that they say is unknown, but I guess some think that it could possibly be $12,000 at a minimum for these GPUs. Your thoughts?
That seems kind of expensive. Yeah, the Radeon Pro Vega 2 GPU.
Yeah.
To cost what, $6,000 each?
Yeah. Yep. $6,300. Yeah, and they say they see okay. Yeah, and let's face it, these are all MSRP prices, right? So that maybe that's true. Maybe you can get a deal, but that's still okay. Even 10,000 then for two, which would be a deal.
Yeah, you could get those, and then if you needed that much power in your GPUs, then I guess you could afford to buy them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I would. I mean, I think there's going to be, if I do get one of these, I don't think I'm going to be spending, $30,000 on it, on this computer.
Yeah.
I think that's beyond my limits. But maybe 10, even though that seems like a lot.
Yeah.
It's not really that much more than I spent for my previous computer.
Yeah.
I spent for a 2012 cheese grater Mac probably like $6,000, and that was with nothing in it, and then adding RAM and other stuff, probably spent more like $7,000 if you add the cards, or maybe $7,500 with the cards and everything else. So spending, and that was a while back. That was 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
So considering inflation and the fact that this computer's probably better than that one, I mean, even comparably in time, as far as being advanced, more advanced now than that was advanced back then.
Yeah.
I don't think 10,000 is necessarily out of the realm of reason.
Yeah.
I do think maybe 20, 30 might be for me.
One thing that I was excited about, but then disappointed about, was also the simultaneous announcement of a new Apple Pro display.
Oh yeah,
and I think they're calling it the XDR monitor.
Correct.
So I believe that's the name of it.
Yes.
Being introduced with the Mac Pro.
Yes.
And I believe it doesn't mention it here in this article, but is it a 32-inch monitor? I believe it is.
Let me see.
I don't know the answer.
I think it is 32. Yeah.
So a 32-inch monitor for $5,000, not including a stand, ladies and gentlemen. So for $5,000, you're going to get this great 32-inch monitor and lean it up against the wall. Okay, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna lean it up against the wall, or you're gonna pay an extra $1,000 for the stand that was originally meant for that, which is fabulous. So that's $6,000 right there. $6,000 right there.
Well, I don't know. There was some promoter, like PT Barnum or one of these guys, that said something to the effect of, even bad news is actually good promotion, or even bad information, or it's much more eloquent the way that it was said. But so I feel like this this stand price, well, both of them. The monitor's expensive, but it's not beyond reasonability, considering it's competing against $30,000 to $40,000 monitors, really. Because this is, if you buy a monitor, say from Sony or some other biggies, and you put it in your studio, it could cost $30,000 to $40,000. The ones that would have the spec.
Yeah.
So those guys are afraid, because Apple's cut their monitor price by a quarter of what they sell it for. So, but for us, $5,000 is kind of a lot of money for a monitor.
It is. It's a lot.
Maybe $1,000, $2,000. I spent $2,000 on the 32-inch cinema display.
Yeah, and it's right on the cinema display. But I know you've also gotten some newer monitors.
Yes.
That are, wouldn't you say they're just as good, if not better?
Oh, they are. But at the time, they weren't.
Correct.
So, I've gotten newer monitors because technology marches on, everything gets cheaper, etc. So I have, both my monitors now are way better than that one. But in its day, it was the best, and it was the biggest. So this one is, one of the best monitors out there. The thing that they got a lot of bad press on was the $1,000 stand, because that is kind of stupid. Talk about,
they're greedy. They're really greedy bastards over there. And this is it. This is another, proof of the pudding.
Well, I think they just have one guy at Apple that makes the stands, Giuseppe. And Giuseppe is an artist.
Is it?
And he takes his time.
Is he locked up in a dungeon somewhere?
No, but he's a simple man. He's worn the same shoes for 15 years, but he does make great monitor stands. So I think that's the reason.
$1,000 for a monitor stand. That's awesome.
Signed by Giuseppe.
That is great. That's great. So, I think all in all, safe to say you're probably going to want to spend close to 10 grand for this system, quite possibly.
I think 10 grand is probably going to be the minimum that you'd spend to get anything usable. That would be better than getting an iMac Pro or the newest iMac Pro for 4,000 or 5,000 or 6,000.
So you're saying that the $6,000 model at its base price, at its base model, is really no better than an iMac Pro?
It's probably no better than an iMac as far as CPU, just speed. It's probably more reliable, and it probably doesn't get as hot. It probably doesn't throttle as much. I think that one thing that people don't know about the iMacs is they throttle a lot. All the Mac computers, when they start getting warm, they start pulling back on the CPU usage just so they don't burn up into a big fireball.
Right.
And so this one's going to have enough, gigantic cheese grater vents and fans to make that not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder how that aluminum is going to not give you third-degree burns when it gets so hot. I have no idea how that will happen.
Well, it's stainless steel. It doesn't get as hot.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
It
comes with pot holders.
Yeah. I mean, like,
they only charge $350 for the pot holders.
I got to imagine after like 40, 72 hours or so, it's probably got to have that burn-in kind of look.
Yeah.
It's
gonna be all carbonized.
Yeah, it's gonna
look like an exhaust pipe.
You might have to rub the outside of it with olive oil to season it a little bit.
Yes.
You know how you season your pots and pans and stuff?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Highly recommended to season your new Mac Pro. Well,
are you going to buy one?
I don't know. I'm actually pretty happy with my iMac Pro. I haven't been super disappointed in it.
Good.
Because the thing that you can do with these iMac Pros are pretty much any Macs now is you can use Thunderbolt 3 to use external GPUs. And a while back, I actually bought a pretty good external GPU box, just the enclosure.
Yes. Those breakout boxes, right?
Yeah. And I was gonna put my NVIDIA cards that I had in my old Mac Pros, which are still okay. But it turns out that the newer versions of the operating system don't work that well with them, I don't think. And the drivers just seem to cause a lot of problems. And I just don't want to, create a crashy, unproductive situation. So I actually just recently got an AMD type card. What is it? Not even that expensive. The really expensive Vega cards were too much. They were like $800 or something. The ones that are in my iMac Pro. But I got the Radeon RX 580, 8 gigabyte, and it's actually still supposed to be pretty quick. Not as quick as the Vegas, which I guess are the high end ones, but it's still okay. And I'm going to try this out with my eGPU and see if it does anything good, or if it just causes a lot of hassle. So I haven't done that yet. So we'll get back maybe by the end of this episode. I'll have tested it. So anyway, I guess you could theoretically kind of daisy chain these, or use a couple Thunderbolt ports for them, and get maybe like a 3 GPU system out of your iMac, or even your stupid little,
MacBook Pro, maybe
MacBook Pro, or the
Mac Mini.
The Mac Mini. I even forgot what these computers are called now. It's been so long. But yeah. So So I'm gonna actually just see if. So maybe.
Well, that's actually pretty encouraging, though, to think that the new iMac Pros are actually pretty good machines.
I'm actually kind of amazed how good and fast they are. I'm surprised. Definitely faster than my old cheese grater. And just seems to run pretty cool. The fans don't go on too often. Probably, I think the software is more a limitation. Like Premiere Pro is just really horrible speed wise.
It's been so long since we've recorded something. I do miss the rag on Premiere Pro.
Yeah. Well, it's really it's amazing because anytime anybody posts anything on a Premiere update on any of these sites, like Premiere is going to do this or that, or they just say, why don't you just make your stuff more stable and faster? Forget about these features. Forget about this and that.
Right.
And they're actually starting to discontinue support for older versions of Premiere.
Oh, no.
You
no.
can't even download them. Like, you know how sometimes you'll find a version of Premiere that you really think is pretty stable and good.
Right.
And you want to be able you don't necessarily want to have to store it on your system
right.
in its original state.
Right.
It's not that easy to either. Well, you could always download. You can always go to these Adobe sites and download them, that part's pretty cool. Well, they're starting to just only make it 2 revisions. So, like, for now, I think you can only go back to 2017. So, and then next year it'll be 2018.
Right.
So, yeah. And I'm actually using, like for this podcast, I'm actually using 2017 because that's the most stable one I've found for doing a mostly audio podcast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then for my new video projects, I'm using 2018 because there's a certain stable version of that. I haven't even tried 2019 because 2019 I've heard from everybody, it just sucks and just crashes your computer. Like you want to, like it's just if you want to install it, just you're in for like a week of non-productivity and then you wind up going back to the previous version. So why would you even do it? So anyway, I'm just saying. Great. And then when you look at the speed things about editing and rendering and all this stuff with the different NLEs, Premiere Pro is like 1/4 the speed of Final Cut or Resolve, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just saying it's more of a software limitation than the hardware, I think, these days in a lot of cases.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
so all in all, to me, it sounds as if Keith Moreau, you're kind of in a mode of wait and see on this new Mac Pro.
Oh yeah. I don't even know if I would buy the first version of it. Like if it came out at the end of this year, and it's probably gonna. When they say this year, it's probably gonna come out on December 29th, kind of like the iMac Pro from a couple years ago.
Yep.
So it's
they're saying here. When they say is this going to be released? Would they say fall? Hang on. Let me at the top of the Apple site. It says, let me coming this fall. Okay. So,
So fall is, I guess, if
that could be December. That still could be.
Winter eventually starts December 21st. So they could release it December 20th.
Yep.
And then you won't be able to buy it because that's Christmas week. So
right.
Realistically, it's going to be next year. I think we'll have to bet on it and see when it actually comes out.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's really not going to be for over a year. Well, from now it'll be 6 months at least before we can even say how great this thing is. Where there's enough reports out there where it's worth it or it's a big hassle or this or that. And then probably a year after that where there's a refresh. So I'm thinking it's going to be a couple of years. But it's great, awesome that Apple's doing it. I'm not putting them down. I think it's great that they're still pushing this Pro platform.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would actually have to say this is probably much more in line of what people were hoping for. I know you would have been very pleased that this be the one rather than the trash can Mac Pro.
Yeah, the trash can was just
that was just kind of novelty, goofy kind of thing.
It was goofy.
Yeah,
it was goofy. It was, in my opinion, no better than an iMac.
Yeah, right,
and kind of proved it because. You can buy iMacs that are much faster than it these days, and it wasn't expandable. So you're just buying this kind of cool thing, but it's fast for maybe 6 months and then became surpassed. Yeah, so much more in line with the Pro, kind of the Pro mentality.
Yeah,
of being expandable. So that part's really cool.
Yeah, I think that by what the looks of it, this kind of looks like what everyone would want to spend their $15,000 on rather than the trash can Mac Pro.
Yeah. So. And the price is going to limit everybody from getting them.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be fewer people that bought this one than the previous one. Because I think the previous one, you could get the low end version for $3,000 to $4,000.
Uh-huh.
If you really scrounged.
Right.
And that's nearly half of what this one's out for. And that's even considering inflation, it's still probably a little bit more expensive than the previous one.
Right.
So... And everybody's just the commodity thing about really, really cheap computers is really driven the price down on lots of stuff probably even the components inside these things. But still, some things you have to pay for, and some people aren't willing to. They just don't, it's not worth it for them.
Yep, exactly.
They'd rather build their Hackintosh and get something that they're going to be tearing their hair out for months and months over, and loss of productivity, but they save a bunch of money.
They save a bunch of money, and then they get that satisfaction of DIY and all this kind of thing. Yeah. Which some people really like to do. So
yeah, they have the time to do it, and it's okay. It's fun. I'm kind of like that too, but then there's a limit.
Yeah. I mean, like, you definitely have to have a system already up and running to actually do the work. And then maybe you can tool around with it like a hobby type of thing, and then hopefully get that rolling so that you can replace the workhorse that you'd been using.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, great. Yeah. All right, good. Well, hey, that's the new Apple Mac Pro along with their 32-inch new display that doesn't come with a stand. And that will be released this coming fall. And that could mean, I guess, anytime around September-ish, huh? So after September to the end of the year?
September.
Yeah, after September. More likely, like you said, probably the end of the year, if anything. So
that's what I'm thinking, but you never know.
No, you never know. You never know. You never know. But let's move on here because I think the kids at home are really looking forward to something that occurred back when was this? Back in April. It is the NAB 2019 show that happened in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Keith, being our man about the town, was tasked with getting us some really great interviews and talking to the folks on the showroom floor. And he was successful at doing some of that. So, Keith, any little quick comments you want to give about NAB? Let's not do a summary. We'll do the summary at the end of the show. But maybe what you were looking forward to, if you can remember that far back, because I sure can't. But what were you looking for out of NAB? Were you expecting any kind of new gear to pop out? So on and so forth. What were you looking for with NAB?
I think I was looking for something new from Canon Cinema, and they really didn't, because I have a couple C200s, and I really like the Canon stuff, and just I love they're kind of almost always there, but never quite there with everything. Yep. And I was hoping for an update maybe to the C200, because there were tons of rumors about the C200 getting a better internal codec. Because right now the C200 does 8-bit internal MP4 type recordings, and it's good. It's actually really great quality for 8-bit, but it's still 8-bit, and it's a little, it kind of limits the camera's use in some situations, just because a lot of news gathering organizations and other places they require 10-bit recording, and so you can get 10-bit and even higher if you use RAW. But then RAW is really kind of expensive to run because it uses a lot of data and uses expensive cards, and you have to swap them out all the time instead of having a long recording on these SD cards that it has. So everybody was, there's a 3,000, no, not 3,000, like 300 post thread about it on one of the sites, and everybody was saying, yeah, it's going to come out. Don't worry, it's coming out, and there's just all this discussion, and then finally when NAB came, it didn't come out. And so everybody was disappointed with their crappy camera that wasn't upgraded. And but I'm fine with it, because I've done a bunch of recording on the 8-bit, and it's awesome.
And it still works great, right? I mean, 8-bit still looks great.
It looks great, and then when you're doing just little B-roll here and there, I use ProRes, because it's got much more latitude, and you can grade it a lot better, and you can push stuff around. So it's really great for kind of run and gun short stuff. You probably don't want to do really, really long interviews on it, because it's just, it can use a lot of data.
Right.
But you could even do that if you wanted to, and then you get the utmost in quality because it's RAW. So I love that. So in a way, it's a really awesome design camera. It's just that if they put that 10-bit in, then there would just be no reason not to get one for anybody. And I think that they just don't want to cannibalize maybe their higher end camera sales. But I don't think they're selling that many of the C300s anyway, so why not? But we'll see. So that was the thing I was looking for. It didn't happen. I wasn't thinking there would be too much more from Blackmagic or any of the other camera makers. I hadn't heard anything, and there really wasn't. So I didn't focus too much on going there. Like I went by the Canon booth. It's crazy. They had a couple new type cinema lenses in it. Not too interested in them. Kind of skipped that one, even though I visited the booth. Skipped, Sony booth, and just went to a couple others that looked interesting that had some new stuff. So we'll talk about that when the segments come up.
Fabulous. Just to get everyone all ready for it, we've got interviews from Z CAM. We have products from ErgoRig. We have Atomos. And we also, of course, have our friends from Blackmagic Designs. And so we've got a lot of coverage coming up with regards to NAB 2019. And so let's do this, Keith. Let's take a little break here. Let's reset everything here, and we will dive into the interviews and get going with our 2019 NAB special. And we'll reset in just a minute. How about that?
Awesome.
Very good. All right, folks, we'll be right back with more on Tech Move. Continuing coverage of NAB 2019 here on Tech Move. It's Rod Louie and our man about the town, Keith Moreau. Keith, we have another special interview with the folks at Z CAM that we'd like to present our audience. You were good enough to secure Alan Chen from Z CAM, and he's the product marketing director at Z CAM, and he spent a few minutes with you talking about a couple of new products that look pretty interesting. I think specifically one that they're really hyped on is the Z CAM E2, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you explain that to us, what the E2 is?
E2 is better than the E1. The E1.
And a couple of bucks more, probably, I would imagine, huh?
Yeah. I don't even know if they have the E1 anymore. But so the Z CAM, and I've seen them couple of years in a row. They didn't start too long ago. But the thing that I love about the Z CAM is it's just a box with nothing else on it. Kind of like with the Cinema Pocket Cam, or the Blackmagic micro cameras are.
Right.
But apparently the image quality on these Z CAMs is really, really good. So they were kind of famous for the Z CAM E2, which is the kind of the equivalent of the Pocket 4K. And it's just a box. It needs all kinds of, monitoring and handles and things like that, but its image is pretty darn good. And it records in Apple ProRes. And then they're also coming out with the Z CAM E2-S6, which is the S35 kind of version of it. It's maybe slightly bigger. And then they're actually coming out with the E2-F6. I don't know if we talked about that or not on the show, but anyway, it's actually it's a company to watch, I think, because I think they're going to start becoming more and more popular, and the prices are really, really good for what they do.
So are they a direct competitor to Blackmagic Design?
Yeah, I would say they're a direct competitor to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's a 4K at 156 frames per second, Apple ProRes certified. Could be in kind of a neat form factor. It literally looks like a big dice.
Yeah. It's just it's a little bit like a Red, but I think it's much more, in a way, more usable than a Red out of the box. You just need to plug a monitor into it and then add some storage. So.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, let's get to it then. Let us begin our discussion with Alan Chen from Z CAM and our very own Keith Moreau right here on Tech Move.
Hi, Keith Moreau here with TechMove. We're here with Z CAM, and I've got Alan of Z CAM, and he's going to talk about some of their current products and some of the new to come products. Hi, Alan.
Hi, I'm Alan. Yeah. So here in my hand is our product in the market. It's a Z CAM E2, which was announced last year in NAB, and we delivered it in October last year. So it's right on the market. It's a 4K micro four third camera with maximum 120 FPS frame rates. So you can run 4K 120 FPS with this camera. And it has a micro four third CMOS sensor with 13 to 15 stop dynamic range. So it has very good quality of image. So and also we have plenty of interface. So we have Wi-Fi for Ethernet, and we have kind of a USB-C for control and also for external recording. And this camera uses a CFast 2.0 card for internal recording. And we just got the ProRes certification from Apple this year, so you can record ProRes internally on this camera up to 4K 60 FPS. Yeah.
What flavors of ProRes?
ProRes is kind of high quality video codec. It's very friendly to the post-production. Yeah, because it has bigger bit rates with less compression, and it's more friendly for post-production. Yeah.
Okay, so with ProRes, you have ProRes 422, ProRes HQ, ProRes RAW, etc.
422 HQ, up to 422 HQ, and also 422 and 422 LT and proxy. Yeah.
That's great. So this is available now.
Yeah, it's available on the market. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can you send out as well to a hard disk recorder? SSD, something out through USB?
We have a USB-C port at the back, so it can connect to a SSD, external SSD for recording. Yeah, sure.
That's great. And then do you have some type of log formats that you also record in?
Yes, we have our own log called Z-Log. It's a very nice curve. So, and with our plugin for post softwares like the Premiere and Resolve or Final Cut Pro, we can produce very nice image with our plugin, with our log file. Yeah.
And are there any other features like autofocus or anything like that?
Yeah, we have autofocus and even continuous autofocusing with human body tracking functions. Yeah, because within this smart body, the chipset has a deep learning module. So with that module, we enable the human body tracking function. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds
smart cam. Yeah.
That sounds really good. Yeah. How would you compare this to, say, for example, the Canon dual pixel autofocus?
To what?
How would you compare this autofocus to something like the Canons or the Sonys?
Yeah, they are very good at autofocusing. Our focusing is not that fast, but it's still usable.
Okay, so it's contrast-based rather than some other pixel-based.
It's not pixel-based. It's not contrast-based. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so it's a little more advanced than contrast-based, but it's not like a dual pixel.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And then how long, for example, we've got a 950 battery on here?
Use the standard Sony NPF battery plate. So for example, if you use Sony NPF 970, it can run continuously at least 4 hours for continuous recording.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, because our advanced technology, the power consumption is very efficient. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, I noticed there's some type of display here, but it's not a video display. It's a control display.
It is a video display.
Oh, really?
It's a full color video display. You can see you can actually preview with it. It's actually small, but it's usable.
Oh, okay. And then you have some type of also video output to monitor?
Yes, we have a full type HDMI, so you can output up to 4K 60 FPS to a monitor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then any other features you want to mention on this current product?
One thing to point out is that we have kind of a synchronization port, so we can synchronize multiple cameras up to like the 50 cameras to pixel level perfect sync. Yeah, because we have been doing in the last 2 years we've been VR cameras, so we are kind of good at the camera syncing technology. Yeah, so one of the customers used 12 E2 setup to record a kind of 30K super big image videos. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And is it your own proprietary syncing technology?
Sorry?
Is it your own syncing technology?
It's our own syncing technology. Yeah.
What about time code in and out?
And we support timecode, and also we have a kind of accessory called timecode adapter, which can receive timecode signal from external devices. Yeah, we just released this accessory recently. Yeah.
And that goes in the serial port?
Yeah, it goes with the serial port. Yeah. It's kind of accessory adapter onto it. Yeah.
That's great. And then you can have some type of IP output as well?
Yes, with the Ethernet port, we can control the camera remotely with the PC software, and also we can fetch the video stream with that port, so you can do live streaming with this camera. Yeah.
Wow, this is great. So what's the weight of the camera without the cage and the battery?
It's 760 gram. Yeah, because it's metal housing, full metal housing for better heat releasing. So actually it's very tight and not heavy actually.
No, it's about less than 2 pounds, right?
Yes. It's less than 2 pounds, yeah.
Like 1.5 pounds.
1.5 pounds. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, right.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I assume that these work well on gimbals.
Yeah, it's well because it's a cube and it's very solid. So it's easy to get balance on the gimbal. You can see over there, we can fit on most of the gimbal on the market. Yeah, works well. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so this is the current release, and how much does this cost?
This is $2,000. So it's available on BH right now already. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about some upcoming camera.
Yeah. This is our new model. We call it the Z CAM E2/S6. Actually, why we're doing this camera is after we released E2, we got many feedbacks from our customer. They're happy with the image quality, the performance, but the only limitation is the sensor size, micro four thirds, and the lens mount, micro four thirds. So they want a bigger sensor and a bigger lens mount to do even filmmakers. So we kind of introducing our new model like the Z CAM S6. It's a 6K Super 35 camera with a similar camera design and similar size of E2. You can see from this one. The only difference is that the lens mount is bigger because we have a EF lens mount here, and we also have a PL lens mount option. Yeah, and also we were starting on micro four thirds lens mount at the same time. Yeah. So with this camera, you get you have a bigger sensor. You get a better image quality, and and you can fit to more lenses. Yeah.
Same autofocus capability?
Yeah, because we share the same hardware and software platform with Z CAM E2, so most of function are the same on the Z CAM E2 and the other variants. Yeah.
Wow. Pretty cool. And then what is this going to go for, and when is it going to be released?
This one will be launched in October this year. Yeah, so it's kind of 6 months later. Yeah.
Any idea in the price?
It's $4,000. Actually, $3,995.
That sounds like a really good deal. So I just became familiar with Z CAM pretty recently, like maybe a year ago. So tell me a little bit about the history of Z CAM and some of the previous products and things like that.
Okay, actually, Z CAM, our team kind of started a company 6 years ago. We start from, actually, our founder is very professional in the imaging and video industry. So we have kind of introduced our first micro four thirds camera E1 in 2015, which is the smallest micro four thirds camera in the world at that time. And after that, actually in 2016 and 2017, we have been making several professional VR cameras, including 360 and 180 VR cameras, a whole series. But back to last year, from 2018, we back to focus on the kind of high-level video cameras, the 4K video cameras. So we built an E2. Yeah. So our team is mostly engineers. They are quite professional at the video, at the imaging, at the color science. Yeah.
That's cool. One of the things that is really hot now is recording RAW. Do you have any plans to do that?
Actually, we are working on the new firmware for E2, with RAW enabled. So with the firmware update, even with E2, you can record RAW internally. Yeah.
Are you going to be possibly recording in Apple RAW or some of the other lighter RAW formats?
Apple ProRes RAW, I don't think so. Yeah, but we have ProRes already. We have RAW, so it's already many options for the customer. Yeah.
So you're going to record in your own flavor of RAW?
Yeah, it's our own RAW. It's our own RAW. Yeah, because we want to control the quality. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks so much, Alan. You've been really, really, really helpful. I actually really love your camera. I love the smallness of it. I could see this going maybe at the end of a big boom pole, like as a jib or on a smaller gimbal. I have some other small micro four thirds cameras, but this is very, very intriguing to me. So I'm really glad that you gave me this interview.
Yeah, thank you, Kes. Yeah.
Keith Moreau signing off for TechMove NAB 2019.
That's our friend Alan Chen from Z CAM in our continuing coverage of NAB 2019. It is Rod Louie and our man about the streets, Keith Moreau. Thank you very much for getting Alan to talk with us. The E2, very interesting product here. It's a it's this 4K 160 frames per second 10-bit color. And I asked you during the production meeting, it looks like it's micro four thirds.
Yeah, the original one that's I think the most popular is the micro four thirds, and that's been out for a while, maybe a year. Mm-hmm. And they've sold a lot because I see them talked about in a lot of areas. Kind of like a Red, kind of modular. It's just a box, and you have to add everything to make it work. But everybody has these things anyway. You have hard drives, you have monitors, you have handles, so in a way it's just like a little cube that you can just add things to make it work. But the thing that's kind of intriguing is they have a Super 35 sized one, and that's 6K, so it's pretty high resolution.
And that's not out yet, is that correct?
I think it's close to being out, but it's not quite out yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even at the time of this recording. Because us, we're pretty far behind.
I don't think it's quite out, but it's because if you go to their website, you can only order the micro four thirds ones.
Yeah, nothing's there.
Yeah. So, but he told me they're coming out soon. What's really interesting, which I think, if they can actually get it out at the price point, which I think is about 5K, is the full frame version. And there's a 6K full frame version, and there's an 8K full frame version.
Wow.
And that's pretty cool. I think that at least the 6K full frame version is going to be like a Red killer if it actually is a good camera. So
so we need to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
That's something that I would possibly consider.
Okay.
Just for that full frame look.
That's great. That's great. But as far as the E2, interesting. On their website, they seem to have some sample footage of what they've taken. Looks pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll see. I just wonder what it is that you would have to add to it to make it useful for you, Keith Moreau.
For me, I would probably have everything I need to make it useful for me, because I already have a bunch of peripherals for all kinds of things. I have small monitors, large monitors, handle rigs, hard drives, lenses. So I could actually just get this camera and it would actually work. I wouldn't have to personally buy anything extra.
Yeah.
But you do need to add things to make it work. You can't just buy it and it's going to work for you. You at least need an external monitor. You at least need a hard drive and some storage.
One interesting product fact that they put on their website: gigabit Ethernet for data control, control, and live streaming. So it sounds very interesting. It sounds like you could use this in a live application if you really need to. I just don't know how good it could stream with all that content. You know what I mean? I just don't.
Yeah, I think it's, just like Blackmagic has Ethernet outputs and things. I think, lots of cameras are starting to get that, and I believe that that's a great feature. And they're going to sell a lot to the kind of more of the broadcasting market for that reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. That is the Z CAM, folks. So thank you very much, Keith. Let's take a break. and we'll come back and maybe finish out this special NAB 2019 edition of Tech Move. We'll be right back. All right, I'm Rod Louie, and with me is Keith Moreau from Tech Move and our continuing coverage of NAB 2019 from Las Vegas. And our next interview that we have is a very interesting rig. It's something called ErgoRig. And Keith was able to secure an interview with the inventor, and I'm going to say the founding person. His name is Jesse Feldmann of ErgoRig. And Keith, this is something I know that you're always very interested in as far as these types of back-saving, arm-saving, body-saving equipment assistance devices.
Yes. Yes, from the very beginning, I always thought that it was a pain to have a gigantic camera on your shoulder.
Or on an outstretched arm so that you show every shake on a camera when your muscles are completely collapsing from the strength required.
Yes. And so walking around looking at this thing, it's funny because you don't notice this thing immediately when you're walking through, but you do notice the gigantic rigs that are almost look like you're Iron Man with a big sling over your shoulders and rods and stuff, and you take up about 20 feet circumference sphere of space.
It's like you need like a helicopter landing in order to do a pan shot or something.
Yeah. And I would feel very insecure with that. But I think on a movie set they have use because they definitely offload. But this guy was sharing kind of the same booth area with the other ostentatious ones that are always there. So they must be doing well because I always see these guys there. And so yeah, and I said this is actually something that maybe I could use. And so yeah, so I went there, and he's a really nice guy. He turned out he's actually a fairly accomplished camera operator and cinematographer.
Yes.
So he actually shot a bunch of series that we know.
Yep.
One was Sons of Anarchy.
Yep.
And I'll talk more about that in the outro about what he told me.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, let's get to that because it's a very interesting product that he's got. Again, company's called ErgoRig, and you spell that ErgoRig. And our guest today is Jesse Feldmann, who speaks to our very own Keith Moreau on the floor of NAB 2019 right here on Tech Move.
Hi, this is Keith Moreau with Tech Move Podcast, NAB 2019. We've got Jesse Feldmann here with ErgoRig, and Jesse's actually the inventor and developer of the ErgoRig. Hi, Jesse.
How you doing?
Good. So tell me a little bit about your ErgoRig and all the functions and how it started, etc.
Yeah, so ErgoRig is to protect camera operators. As camera operators, we do handheld all the time, 12 hours a day, big heavy cameras, and it takes a toll on our bodies. And we should be able to be healthy. We should be able to go home and pick up our kids and do everything else. After 16, 18 years of cameras on my shoulder, it took a toll on my body, and I'm way too young to have a back broken like it is. I did 2 seasons on Sons of Anarchy, which is all handheld, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me with a big camera and not being able to do handheld just with the camera on my shoulder anymore. And so I wanted to keep doing it, and that led me down the road to making this. This basically has a false shoulder that sits above your normal shoulder that you put the camera on, and you operate just as if you were holding a camera on your shoulder. It just doesn't have the weight on your spine. So all the weight is transferred to your hips, which can take a lot more weight without you noticing it, and it feels like you're not carrying anything, and you can relax and breathe and just operate the camera. So this takes all the weight, you just operate it.
Wow, that's awesome. So tell me about the history of how long ago did you think about it, prototypes, manufacturing, all the fun details.
Yeah, so I was working on Neighbors 2, and we were doing long improvisational takes. Seth would just keep going and going and going, and it was a Studio Alexa, and it was all handheld, so we'd just stand there with cameras on our shoulders, and it was too much. So we ended up using like pogo sticks to basically support the weight of the camera, but it wasn't really feasible because every time you have to move, you have to lift up, and it just didn't make a lot of sense. So that got me thinking, well, if all you need to do is transfer the weight, there's got to be a way to do that in a mobile way. And that led me down the road of this. So, it's probably 2.5 years of prototyping, maybe a little more than that, and development and getting different features and feedback and this and that. And so we're finally releasing it here at NAB.
That's great. And how has the response been?
It's been great. It's been really good. The last couple of months, I've been giving demo units to friends working on different shows, and it's been really good. It's fun to see here, giving it to some random person I don't know, seeing their skeptical face, putting the camera on their shoulder and seeing this, like I've witnessed this moment 100 times now of just people just with this aha moment of, oh, that's easy. Like, why didn't somebody do this before? And it's not rocket science. It just, it works. And I think they're envisioning spending 12 hours a day with heavy cameras on their shoulders and being able to go home at night and sit down on the couch and be okay.
And I assume that you use your own product?
I do. I very much do. I actually can't do handheld without it now. Like physically, a cinema camera on my shoulder is too much weight for my broken back. I'm just in pain. So I use it for everything.
Wow, that's awesome. So you want to talk about it in detail? Tell us a little bit about what it's composed of and how to adjust it.
Sure. So it goes on your body like this.
Now, are we getting the whole frame?
You tighten it so it sits right above your hips. You get the middle strap. This basically keeps it all next to you, so it is an extension of your body rather than a separate piece on your body. You get them both tight, and then on the front and back, you adjust the height through here. This goes up and down for different body types. This individually goes up and down. Some women prefer it to be high or low, or just depending on your body type. So you get it to a point where it sits so there's just a little bit of space in between your shoulder, and then when you put a camera on it.
And how much does this camera set up weigh?
This camera itself is 33 pounds. This rig can take cameras, as heavy as you can build. It can take a full Alexa 65 with anamorphics, and you can see there's a little bit of space in there, and it just takes the weight. So I feel no weight on my shoulder right now. It's all on my hips, which, your hips can take a lot of weight without you noticing. It's not like you're carrying nothing, but you're not carrying it on your back. Your spine is not getting compressed. So I can be here, just operating, and I'm breathing right now. I'm not straining. I can just, with light touch, adjust my tilt and pan, and it's just more in control.
Anything you need to modify with this rig as far as your posture or anything like that?
No, I mean, every time you operate, any handheld camera operator understands that there's micro adjustments you make to your body that are going to, just adjust how you do this with keeping your level horizon. It's hard to wrap it all up into a little thing on a podcast, but you spend years operating a camera, you learn these small body tricks, With this, you can use all those things and use more because you just learn new ones because you learn how it sits with your body because it's attached to your body. It's not going anywhere, right? So you just learn how to, kind of bend differently. But you can sit down, you can stand up, you can run, you can walk, you can do whatever, and it doesn't influence the camera movement.
In fact, you probably have to stand up a little bit straighter all the time, but that's probably better for you anyway.
Exactly. The idea is to handhold cameras ergonomically. So this, not only does it not put weight on your spine, so that's an ergonomic aspect of it, but it forces you to keep a straighter back, so you're not, bending over and cradling and doing things that are going to cause you back pain.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So it looks pretty straightforward, and that's a great little invention. Okay, so I don't know if you want to hold this while we talk about some other stuff, or if you want to put it down. Maybe if he keeps holding us, this will prove how great the device is. But you mentioned that you actually did some camera operating for Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit that experience and what you were using on the show. I assume it was a film camera, but I don't even know. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I spent about 6 years in the indie world doing indie features and music videos and non-union stuff, and then I joined the union in 2007, and since then have done Sons of Anarchy, Homeland, True Blood, People vs. O.J. Simpson, Versace, Feud.
We love Versace. We just saw that.
That was a fun one. Yeah. More stuff. That Disaster Artist. I don't know, other stuff. So Sons of Anarchy was a camera more heavy than this. I think our camera, we weighed it one day and it was 35 or 40 pounds, I believe. It was an Studio Alexa with zooms, with transmitters, with accessories, with with scopes. It was just a big build, and we just put it on our shoulders, and that's what we did. And Sons of Anarchy was I'm forgetting, 7 or 8 seasons. I feel like it was 7 or 8 seasons. Yeah, because I think I did 6 and 7, so 7 seasons, and it was all handheld. So that's 7 years of 2 camera operators, sometimes 3, having a camera on their shoulder all the time. It takes its toll. After I did Sons, I did a few episodes of Veep, and that's, again, similar build, similar camera, and you're just all on your shoulder, After enough time, that takes its toll on you, and you can't do it anymore. And there's lots of operators who have broken backs and, slipped discs and all kinds of problems just from having a camera on their shoulder. So we need to, as a community, come together and take charge of our bodies and keep ourselves healthy.
So I'm also a camera operator, although I don't usually operate cameras this gigantic. I usually operate much smaller cameras in this kind of new digital age of, this camera's, in its day, it was probably $100,000 to $200,000 with lens and extra. I'm talking more like under 20K type cameras. So I probably don't have quite the weight issue that you do for me personally, but also a heavier camera has a better handheld quality, I think, than a small light camera. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So it's all about inertia. Like with Steadicam, if you have too small of a camera, you don't have enough inertia. Your movement's going to be different with a heavier camera, with a lighter camera. That's why when you pick up your phone, it can kind of be shaky a lot, and because you have no weight, there's nothing stopping you from moving from point A to point B, or nothing resisting, rather. So it's not that we want heavy cameras as camera operators or as filmmakers. They are inherently heavy. Glass and lenses is one aspect of it that is a little limited in terms of how small that can get. We can get the camera smaller to a degree, of course, but it's going to be heavy once we get follow focus on, once we get all these accessory on, as well as the larger sensor cameras. An LF, a 65, these are bigger cameras, and they're heavy, and people want to do handheld with them. Marvel, there was an operator that on one of the Avengers movies just had, was just hand-holding camera, did a pan, and slipped a disc in his back and was down. And so they've ended up going to a bungee system for a lot of rigs where you can literally kind of float the camera in the air, which is great and cool, but unless you're Avengers, you're not going to have access to that time and money to be able to do that. Or if you're having 2 cameras moving at the same time, one of them's going to have to be on your shoulder. So something like this is able to take the weight for you and just protect you as you do it.
Okay, now we get down to, are these available now, and how much do they cost?
They are available now, yes. They cost $1,850. If you buy them within the next 2 weeks of now, they're $1,700. We're doing an NAB special. They're available now. You can go to ErgoRig.com and buy.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I really want to ask you all about your career and all the other stuff and all your DP work, but we could probably say that for another podcast or just end it now, but maybe after the recording. So thanks so much, Jesse. You've been great.
Thank you very much.
Keith Moreau signing off for Tech Move.
It's Rod Louie and Keith Moreau. Keith Moreau just getting done with the folks over at ErgoRig and the one and only Jesse Feldmann, who is the inventor and founder of the ErgoRig. Very nice product. Keith, give me some of your impressions once you strapped it on yourself.
Oh, it was great. It was great. Some of these cameras, the big cinema cameras with all the batteries and other stuff attached to them can be like 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds.
Once you rig them out like that, right?
Yeah, they're pretty massive. So he actually invented it because he started developing back problems from doing Sons of Anarchy for for a few seasons.
Yep.
And they were just all handheld that show. And a lot of shows are fully handheld to get that immediate kind of excitement. And handheld looks pretty good on when you have a pretty massive camera like that, because you just don't get the micro shakes.
Yep.
The problem is that you always have this weight on one side of your body, and so it looks good, but then it can really physically take its toll. So the ErgoRig, it's a really simple concept. It's just a waist belt, so it puts all the weight of something on your hips, kind of like a big backpack would. They're hip based, and your body's much easier, can carry that much more easily without straining your back, because the load is not on your back, it's actually on your hips and legs. So and then it has this kind of loop that goes up around your back to your front and just clears your shoulder just by a small amount. So this strap is not actually resting on your shoulders. There's a little bit of airspace in between, and you can adjust it. Of course, different people have different body lengths and things, so it's adjustable. And then it's got a kind of a grippy pad on the top, and then you just put your shoulder mounted camera on top.
Nice.
And it just totally isolates the weight from your shoulder, so it's not pressing down by unilaterally on your body. And I could see this being super popular for all the camera operators out there in Hollywood, or anybody else that carries a big shoulder rig around.
Not appropriate for documentarians like yourself or anything like that, because the rig, I mean, you got a C200. I mean, is that still manageable for you?
I don't mount it on the shoulder that much, luckily, but when you rig it out, it can get kind of heavy. It can be like 10, 15 pounds. If you put a big heavy lens on it and you have all the extra stuff going on, it starts getting kind of heavy. So it is possible that if I were in a shoot where I would be standing up all day, and needed to have this on my shoulder, with a little bit bigger rig, a bigger camera rig, that I could possibly want one. And they're not that expensive. I think it's like less than $2,000, like $1,500. So it's kind of in the same price range as the easy rigs, which have a different concept.
Yeah.
But it's just for shoulder. There is a way that he said you can kind of use it to also do handheld, where you put a strap around it. So you just kind of have a shoulder strap on your camera, and then you could just still put it on your shoulder, and then it transfers the weight to your hips, but you're using the rig still to manage the camera. I feel like it's a little bit less convenient to do that than just holding a camera. But I think it's primarily just if you're going to have it on the shoulder all day, a really great thing to have. For me, I probably won't get one right away. I have other solutions for the smaller cameras, but still, I really like the concept.
Great. That's great. And real quickly, in comparison to the other competitors that have stuff like this, who have thought ahead about, saving backs, saving arms, and stuff like that, there are a lot of solutions out there. How do you think this compares to some of those other solutions?
I think from a simplicity point of view, it's in a way easier to get the shoulder handheld look. So the traditional thing of just putting the camera on your shoulder and shooting, it's on your shoulder and you can kind of move your body around a little bit, but you can walk a certain way and get pretty steady. For that particular use, just that use only, I think it's one of the best solutions to offload your back, other than just putting it on your shoulder, right?
Right.
Because the Easy Rig has its own limitations. You can kind of hold it in front of you, but it's floaty. It's not the same look.
Yep.
So you can kind of emulate it, but it's not quite as easy as just putting it on your shoulder.
Yep.
However, the Easy Rig is more versatile because you can easily just pull the thing up and down. You kind of have it once you have it neutrally balanced, then the camera's floating, and it just will respond to you pushing it up and down on the cable. And so therefore you can get low shots much quicker than with this particular rig.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Easy Rig maybe a little bit more versatile in the quick change department, but the ErgoRig certainly really great for that traditional over the shoulder or shoulder rig shot that everyone pretty much does all the time.
Yeah, and a little bit more compact because the Easy Rig has this big thing that's over top of your head, and you have to worry about going through doorways and it's spinning around and all this stuff. So a little bit simpler. Once you have this other ErgoRig on, you don't really have to worry about it. You just have this almost like a backpack on. You don't have to kind of make allowances for it.
Great. Excellent. All right. Again, ErgoRig. Jesse Feldman, let him know that Keith Moreau of TechMove sent you to them when you're checking out these rigs. Thank you very much, Keith, for that. We will take a quick break and come back with another interview off the floor of NAB 2019 on our continuing coverage of that. It is TechMove. NAB 2019 being featured here on this episode of TechMove. Rod Louie, Keith Moreau here, and Keith has another get, as we like to say in the business, from Atomos, our fine friends from there. And we actually got to interview somebody that we've never interviewed before from Atomos, and he goes by a single name. His name is Shacky. And Keith was able to kind of get him to talk about a couple of things. I think specifically Shogun 7 and the Shinobi monitors. Keith, were these things that you were hoping to kind of get a feel for when you first approached the Atomos booth?
Yeah, they're new. They're always coming out with new stuff, which that's what I love about Atomos. They're always improving. They deliver most of the time, and they're starting to produce stuff that's even more attuned to portability, etc. So they've come out with a new version of the kind of like the Inferno, the 7-inch Inferno, which I actually have. So they've made mine obsolete. Thank you. And
after only a few short months, isn't that correct?
It's been out a while.
It's probably been about a good couple of years, right? At least.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple of years since they actually came out with it, and I got mine I think a year after it was out.
Okay, right.
So, and then they have Shinobi, which is, I feel like it's a direct competitor to the small HD stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's a pretty high brightness, lightweight, not too much high power consumption 5-inch monitors. And seem pretty versatile, and they seem like they're a little bit better deal than some of the others.
So something I should look at then, huh?
It's right up your alley. They're not super cheap. They're probably not as cheap as some of the knockoff type monitors, but they have good feature sets. The software's pretty good on them. Pretty easy to use. They have a lot of features. So decided to go. Wanted to have, of course, an interview with Jeremy Young.
Yep, the owner or founder of the company.
Founder, the CEO now.
Yep.
They went public a little while back, so
okay.
He's the CEO, and I don't know how much he owns of the company, but that booth was cray.
I'm sure.
It was. Yeah.
That Atomos is one of those companies for these types of shows that always has great turnout, always has a lot of great anticipation built in. So we're fortunate to get TechMove in there, and so I thank you for forcing your way through the line, and however you did it, whether you cut people out or what have you. I'm happy you did it. So thank you.
There was a lot of the SWAT team things that you referenced earlier. Luckily did not get run over by the skateboarders.
Oh, that's right.
There were skateboarders.
So that you could kind of, are they there so that you could film them and like try out their gear? Is that what they're kind of doing? Is that what they're there, or they're just there for just entertainment?
I think for spectacle.
Yeah, interesting.
Pretty much it.
Oh, all right. Well, good. Yeah. Next time I go, I will bring my top hat and cane and do a soft shoe for them. All right, let's get to it. Atomos with Shacky and our very own Keith Moreau on the floor of NAB 2019. Here is Atomos and TechMove.
Keith Moreau here with TechMove Podcast. We've got Shacky of Atomos, and he's going to tell us about their new products.
Hey guys, my name is Shacky. Oh,
I can hold it.
Okay, you got the mic. What's hot in our store at the moment is the Shogun 7. As you can see over here. So the Shogun 7 is the newest version to the Shogun Inferno. The Shogun Inferno is one of our most loved products because of all the connections it's got. The 4K 60p you can do ProRes RAW. And the Shogun 7's got the same exact thing, but they've revamped up the whole design. And it's not just a monitor or a recorder, it's a switcher too, right? And what's the best thing about it is that in the previous one you could send in quad signals in, but this one you can send quad signals in from 4 separate cameras. And with 4 separate cameras coming in, you got a quadrant that'll show you the 4 different cameras, your camera A, B, and C. And it gets even better, so when you hit record, you can capture all the 4 videos at the same time, right? And if you've got an HDMI or an SDI loop out to a bigger screen, you can choose between the 4 cameras what you want to be toggled onto a bigger screen. So what happens is that when you choose that, at the same time it's being looped out to a bigger screen on what's being toggled, and at the same time they've got an XML file that's been generated on the back that's showing you all the transition points. Okay, so once you're done recording, you hit stop, you end up with 6 files. You got 4 ISO files that are individually recorded. Your 5th file is your program file, and your 6th file is your XML file. So when you take that XML file into Final Cut, what's going to happen is it's going to create a sequence, bring in all the videos from the 4 ISO files, and put in transitions on those switching that you did between all of them. That's one of the features of the Shogun 7. The next feature of the Shogun 7 is the all new display panel it's got. So the older Atomos products, they've had backlit LED IPS panels. This one's got the 360 zone switching panel, right? With the 360 zone switching panel, what's going to happen is that it's actively analyzing video signals that's being sent in, and when it realizes the brighter section, the lights, the zones are going to be brighter, and on the darker sections, it's going to reduce more darkness. So what happens is that the previous products had a contrast ratio of 1,000:1. With the newer one, we've got a ratio of 1,000,000:1, provided the zones are turned on. That's highlight feature 2. Highlight feature 3 is it's got Dolby Vision enabled in it. So when you connect your device onto a Dolby Vision enabled TV, it's going to be able to figure out what kind of a signal is coming in. Does it fall to a BD 2020, HLG, PQ, and it's going to be able to send that and live view that on your TV.
Wow. Okay, so when you're talking about the multiple inputs, up to 4 inputs, SDI, HDMI, both.
So we've only got, I can show it to you over here.
Please.
So we can see over here, we've got 4 SDI ins. You got a SDI out and a Genlock, right? You can only put in 4 SDI inputs, right? You've got 2 3G connections and 1 12G in. The output's going to be a 12G out and an HDMI out. So it's limited to SDI connections for the inputs. And for HDMI, you've only got 1 HDMI input. But you can also, just like the old Shogun Inferno, sorry, I'm going to take that out again. You got XLR in, so you can connect analog audio onto that.
That's awesome. Okay, so I've actually got this older Shogun Inferno, which I just bought, so I'm sure you'll be able to give me a refund and I can get this one. But, no, I'm just kidding. I got this a while ago, and it's actually a really nice monitor.
I still would happily tell people, go with the Shogun Inferno. It's great. It does the same exact thing. It's got a different panel, but if you're into switching, please go with the Shogun 7. And obviously, it's future-proof. It's not just a monitor recorder, and it's a switcher. So if you've got an event coming up, you've got your one-stop solution, all 3 in 1. Whereas with this, you're an on-the-go fly recorder. Go for it.
Are they dimensionally the same and weight-wise and construction?
So in terms of the size, they're exactly the same thing. But what they've done is that they've revamped the design. As you can see, this is a bit more cool tech, for the boys kind of vibe. You see what I mean? It's got those extra bumpers, whereas this is more clean and sleek. It's following the new Ninja style, right? So much more sleek design, and just super simple to use. And I forgot the most important thing over here, the operating system. So this one's got the old operating system, which was great, right? Lots of menus, lots of options, a bit colorful. But this one over here, It's super sleek. It's got the Atomos 10, which the Ninja even supports. Everything is intuitive, right? All your graphs have been updated. You can maximize, minimize them. You've got your focus peaking, which you can tweak up, and they're all just been improved drastically. And everything is just like all under one display instead of having things spread around. But yeah, the Atomos 10 is pretty damn cool.
And I have the Shogun over here, and that's upgradable to the 10, right?
That's the Sumo 19. Yes, so the Sumo 19 at the moment, we've got a firmware update that's actually functioning at the moment, where you can do this switching, and that is going to be released, I'd say in about, I can't give you a time frame, but after the NAB show is done, that's what we've been promised by the engineers. That's going to get the same operating system as well.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've covered the Infernos, the Shoguns. So now we're going to cover, maybe the Shinobi, the monitors?
Yeah. So the Shinobi was released this year. So the Shinobi HDMI came out first. Then we released the Shinobi SDI, right? So the Shinobi HDMI goes for $399. The SDI version goes for $499. Does exactly the same thing. The one with the SDI, you've got the option of using an SDI. But hey, for the ones who've already got the HDMI connection, don't worry about it. You can get the Atomos SDI adapter, and you can still use the HDMI one without having to worry about getting the SDI.
Does the SDI model also have HDMI inputs?
Absolutely. So over here, I can show it to you. There we go. So that's the HDMI input over there. This is the SDI in, and it's also got an HDMI in over here as well. So yes, so the SDI one's just got extra connections onto it.
That's really cool. Okay, so we got that. I actually like this. I actually got one of these, and I loved it. I actually got a Canon EOS R, and they kind of match up pretty well. I really love the small form factor. Is quite light.
It's super light.
Yeah, actually, no, I didn't get this. I got this one. Actually, it's a good segue. We're going to talk about this one, which is similar to this in size.
Yep. So the Ninja and Shinobi, pretty much the same size, same design. But the Ninja, as you can see in red, right, it records. The Shinobi can only monitor. It's got the same exact features, all your tools, all your variations, all your LUTs, your vector scopes, your graphs. It's the same thing. It's just that it's missing a record button. But it comes with the perks, right? It's got a longer lasting battery. So if you connect like a Sony LP 9500, try getting a 9500. This is an inside tip. Get a 9500 milliampere battery, and it'll last you all day. I did a shoot about 2 weeks ago, and I used it on one of the mirrorless cameras, and I had it running all day. I didn't even have to swap a battery.
So the fact that it doesn't have the built-in recording system makes it a little bit longer lived for the battery.
Yeah, so it's longer lived, so it's less components on the inside, so it's super light, right? It's perfect for people who are using gimbals or people who are Steadicam operators. So it's a really cool device that I personally really like, just because of the lightweightness and the battery life. Highly rated.
Wow. Okay. So now that we've talked about all the Atomos stuff, let's talk about you.
Okay. What about?
So you told me you were a DP or cinematographer.
Yes.
Yeah, you've been in the industry a while. You've been with Atomos for a little bit.
Yeah.
So tell me about you. And you live in Australia.
Yeah. So we're going back now. So I started off as a photographer. So I'm Sri Lankan, but I was born and raised in the Middle East in Kuwait. So I did photography professionally for about 7 years. And then there were just too many photographers out there. I had to put this frame into motion, and that's when I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to get into filmmaking. And at the time I was working for an advertising agency as an assistant photographer. I was very interested in seeing the film life. Like, you had lights, you had audio guys, and I'm like, jibs, and I'm like, look, man, like, cameras are fun, but I want to do more of that. Like, I want to use a dolly, this is more fun. Got into that, and I was just a runner on sets, on big commercial sets. And then somehow I was like, you know what, I want to get into filmmaking. And I decided to make the big move. 4 years ago, moved down to Melbourne, and I went to film school. Going to film school, I met my best mate, Aaron, and we somehow made it to Atomos in Jan. So it's been only a month for me in Atomos. And so I've been making short films, a couple of music videos here and there, but I wouldn't call myself as a music video guy. I'm more into narrative stuff. But at the moment, more than actually filming, I'm exploring old lenses and old formats of filming, because digital is awesome. Like this is great, but at the end of the day, my idea is new brains, old eyes, right? So you use a new sensor, use the top of the line sensor, use the top of the line monitor, but you got to get the old glasses if you want to get that character, right? There's something to it that appeals to me. I feel like half my story is told when I use the right glasses. So I'm into collecting vintage lenses. I love the Soviet lenses, just because I just feel like they've got solid character and the build quality on them. And and at the moment I'm just trying to do a bit of everything, but at the same time I'm also trying to like restrict myself into doing something that makes me feel like, okay, this is me. And that stuff like that, it would be, I've been enjoying watching clips that are made by Adidas and Reebok for brands, and they're like short 15-second reels. There's no narrative, none of that. It's music and cuts, and they've got such a vibe to it that was, it comes with the music, the lighting that they use, and you watch a clip and you go like, that just took me through a journey, And I've been wanting to make films or clips that just makes you go through a rush, and I guess the audience for that is also much more newer audience. Like I wouldn't be able to show this to my dad and be like, hey dad, like look at this clip. People be like, what is this? I want to tell me a story, make me move. I've been, because I love films. Like films are like, my favorite films are like by Tarkovsky, Stalker, and that's like a 3-hour mind-bending psychological film, right? Like I love films, but at the same time now it's like, okay, let's do something a bit different. Let's do something short, something quick. It's 2019. People don't have attention span, and I was like, okay, let's keep it short. And so I'm trying to do something within that span, something cool, something cinematic. So I'm still trying to explore that.
That's really cool. So speaking of vintage lenses, I actually started getting into that recently, because previously I'd been into like as clean as possible. And the problem is that the cameras are so clean now that you kind of have to dirty them up a little bit.
Yeah.
So just getting back to the vintage thing, I actually recently got a whole set of contacts, Leica contacts lenses. And I got the original ones. I just got them on eBay. I got them from Japan and a bunch of used ones. And then I started adapting them. So I got these adapters that convert them to EF in the back. And I actually ordered some from Italy and just started screwing them on and trying them out.
It's so much fun. Like I remember doing the aperture system on my first vintage lens, which was the Helios, the king of bokeh, right? I bought that lens for about $50 from this person who had no idea what the hell is this, right? Beautiful lens, f2, and the problem with that lens was, because of the old mechanics, I could mount it onto my Sony cameras, but when I changed the aperture ring wouldn't change live, because it had a mechanical button that needed to be pushed in. So that was the first time I had to undo the whole thing, do the mechanics, jam a bit of blue tack in there just so that this piece wouldn't come out and get in there. And it was such a satisfying experience. That's you getting into exploring your own lenses. But like going back to what you said, like how lenses these days are super clean, and people are buying grain packs from the internet, light lead packs on the internet, trying to get that dirty look to it. Just go back to vintage lenses, and they're super cheap. And they work with your micro four thirds, your full frames. You might not get like 4K, 5K grade picture quality, but you still have that character, that cinema, and just do it. That's what I can afford. So that's what I'm going for. You can get like lenses that are worth like $5,000, $6,000. It's a different ball game. I'm gonna go with what I can afford, and at this point in time, I'm gonna go with vintage lenses because they come with the same specs, f2, or you get your Voigtlanders. I'm not sponsoring them, but yeah.
Get some old Canon. What are they? The
Cores, the Fuji lenses, the Pentax lenses, M42 mount, like what were the Vivitars and the Jupiters. Yeah,
Yeah, there's some good lenses out there. So thanks so much, Shacky. You've been awesome. I love this part of the interview. I also love you talking about these new products here, which are really awesome. I really love Atomos because they make these shows kind of exciting because you're coming out with stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And there's not too many big announcements in the cinematography aspects of the show this year. And this is one of the highlights. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. What I have to say is that there's a few packages that have been given out at the NAB show, right? That's for the raffle, and those kits are like our best recommended kits, just because of the raw capabilities and just the handshake between the cameras. Because between the cameras and our recorders just works so effortlessly. Because what's going on right now is that our products are able to do 4K 60p, HD 240. But our products can do that, but some of the cameras can't do that, right? So my best recommendation is that before you buy a product, this is just to avoid people from confusion. Every time when you buy a product, go into atomos.com, right? Go into the support section, look into the supported camera section, and see the compatibility. See what your camera is capable of outputting. Because our camera can do 248, 180p, but your camera wouldn't be able to send that through an HDMI cable. So always check before you buy an Atomos product. That's all I have to say.
Thanks so much. Keith Moreau, Tech Move, NAB 2019.
It is Tech Move in our continuing coverage of NAB 2019. Rod Louie and Keith Moreau and Atomos. And specifically, thank you very much to Shacky, who was able to join us and talk about the Shogun 7 and some of the new Shinobi monitors that Atomos has. And you know what, Keith? What'd you think of the Shogun? What was your impression of that?
Oh, I think the Shogun's pretty cool. If I didn't have one already, I would get this new one. It's kind of a replacement for it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit brighter, more contrast ratios, just a better screen overall, and probably a little bit more compact and maybe a little better built than the one I have. But for me, I'm not going to get the new one because I already have something pretty similar to it. But I think for new customers, yeah, it's a really good deal. I mean, they're just walking away with that market. I feel like there's no other competitors in that market.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I mean, I was more particularly drawn to the Shinobi monitors, because, for a long time I'd been very interested in small HD and, any one of these 5-inch monitors. And of course, there were plenty of knockoffs out there that you could get for, pennies on the dollar. But, the small HDs, they have these great touch screens. You have a lot of control over it. And you know what? This Atomos Shinobi, I think, is in that same kind of arena as well, and it looks great.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a home run for them. I think there's definitely going to be a lot of people that are going to get this over other monitors. This space is starting to get filled with some of the knockoff type brands.
Oh yeah. Of which I have investigated, believe you me. I mean, if you just want a monitor, sure, there's plenty. But if you want some control, these things are pretty nice.
Yeah, and really for improving your cinematography or just in general, having a monitor is such a big plus. It just gives you so much more feedback about how your image is going to look. And then these types of monitors also give you all these extra tools like focusing and exposure and LUTs and things like that. So it really can accelerate your cinematography to the next level as opposed to just a camera. And over HDMI, you can even record 10-bit with a lot of cameras. I mean, well, no, actually, scratch that. Edit. This particular one doesn't record, but it can display up to 10-bit, and this one actually has a full HD display.
Yeah.
So the direct competitor, the Focus, the small HD Focus, which I have a couple of them, they have a 720p display, and they don't necessarily have the level of brightness. So this one overall is just a better monitor for less. I noticed that the original Focus is going for a little bit cheaper now. They reduced the price by $100
Okay.
So they're probably feeling that.
Feeling the pressure.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's great. It's really light. I love the fact that it has a full HDMI input on it.
Rather than a mini HDMI.
Yeah. The one thing that annoys me about, I love the small HD products and stuff, but I feel like they blew it when they put the HDMI input on it, because you have to buy their cables that are a certain size.
Yep.
The mini HDMI or whatever, micro HDMI.
Yep.
And they're really small, and they only fit inside this little slot. And I know why they did it. They did it for strain relief, so you wouldn't break the port.
Right.
But the problem is that these little cables that come with the monitor are really easy to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just use any cable. You actually have to use their cable.
Right. So you really need to have a couple in stock in case you lose one, break one, whatever it is.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to be able to just run to Radio Shack. And I know I'm dating myself, but you can't run a Radio Shack and pick one up.
Yeah. So some people have even taken to actually cutting out the kind of enclosure part that makes only one size cable fit.
Oh wow.
I've actually considered that. Every time I lose or look for this cable, this rare small HD cable, I think of the hacksawing it off. But anyway, so that's a plus. I mean, just for that, I'd probably recommend people get the Shinobi.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's pretty. That's a pretty good endorsement for just that alone, which is great. I'm looking at it. It's $399, and and it's it's still pretty new. So there's not a whole lot of sales out there. So I'm seeing it even for more than the $399 that they advertise on their website. So I would say pick one up now, ladies and gentlemen, because they're not really on sale at all. So they look really good, and I'll have to consider one for myself. So
You should.
anyway, thank you very much again to Shacky at Atomos and Keith Moreau at TechMove, and we will take a break. We will reset and come back with another exciting interview from the floor of NAB 2019 right here on TechMove. Okay, welcome to TechMove and our coverage of NAB 2019. Rod Louie and Keith Moreau are man on the floor. And Keith is going to be sharing with us a fantastic interview that he had with the folks over at Blackmagic Design. And we're going to be introducing a gentleman by the name of Jason Druss, who was kind enough to speak with Keith about a few of the new Blackmagic Design items. Keith, you want to set anything up for us, or you want to let it roll?
Just a moment. Same thing. Went to the back, talked to their press person. Very nice person. They set us up within half an hour, which is great, because the way the Blackmagic Design area works is the front is this huge kind of, in a way, kind of carpeted plaza with little stands of all the different products they sell, all the different cameras, and they sell a lot of electronics too, converters and things like that. And they're all in these kind of separate tables with people walking around. And then they have this fairly large screen and a kind of like a little theater area where they're being shown off the different software products that they have, mostly Resolve. Maybe would probably seat about 50 to 100 people, and that's all kind of together. And then if you go around the back, it's almost like the concrete and it's the back. It's what it's what the convention hall would look if it didn't have the booths in it, really. Although they have a nice kind of press area with several couches and then an area with all the products displayed on a nice clean white counter that's pretty well lit. A little bit too top lit, I think, for the interviews, but it's all right. So we set up, test out our stuff kind of in the concrete-y area that's outside that little press area. Have a couple espressos because they have an espresso guy.
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah.
And then set up our interview. And the guy we found was pretty good. The guy they assigned us was pretty good. He wasn't the usual head of sales marketing guy. He was another person who was pretty fresh, and I liked his approach. And we talked about all the newish Blackmagic design products and things that we were interested in.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's get to the interview. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we have Blackmagic Design and Jason Druss, along with our very own Keith Moreau, on our coverage of NAB 2019 right here on Tech Move.
Keith Moreau here for Tech Move at the 2019 NAB, and we've got Jason of Blackmagic Design here, and he's going to go over some of the new cinema products.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks very much for having me, Keith. We're going to talk about the Ursa Mini Pro G2 today, as well as some other interesting products that we have here at Blackmagic Design. Now, the G2 camera is a pretty significant upgrade to the original Ursa Mini Pro. What we were able to do with the Ursa Mini G2 is we were able to essentially greatly reduce the time in half of the sensor readout. And what that does is it gives us a lot less rolling shutter, it gives us much better color fidelity, and it gets us a much cleaner, sharper image. And because we were able to do that, we were able to get up to 300 frames per second out of the Ursa Mini Pro G2. If you're shooting in the brand new Blackmagic RAW codec, which gives you 12-bit RAW for the file sizes and workflow requirements of traditional 10-bit video files, when you're shooting Blackmagic RAW 8:1, you can shoot up to 120 frames per second in a full 4.6K, and you can shoot up to 300 frames per second in a windowed HD mode. Additionally, like the Pocket Cinema camera, the Ursa Mini Pro G2 brings us recording to flash media out of the USB-C drive. So if you don't want to record to SD cards or CFast 2.0 cards, you're able to record cleanly out of the USB.
Oh, I was actually looking for that on the floor model out there. So if we look closely, there's actually a port in there. Right in here, there's a little USB-C port.
Yeah. Additionally, also, you can record to flash media right out of the USB-C port. The other big advancement to the Ursa Mini Pro G2 also runs to the original Ursa Mini Pro and the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K in terms of Blackmagic RAW 1.3. Blackmagic RAW 1.3 gives us a lot of updates, but the most exciting one is the ability to essentially have a soft LUT included in the sidecar file. So if you're shooting with a custom LUT or if you're shooting with one of the LUTs that comes with the camera, when you export that file and you put it into Vinci Resolve, what you're going to see is that that lookup table actually follows through with the clip throughout the whole entire journey. So it's like having your look baked in, even if it's a custom look, but having it be non-destructive at all times. And the coolest part about that is that if in post-production, if the colorist or the editor or the producer decides that they want a new lookup table attached to that clip, they can update the sidecar file of the Blackmagic RAW clip to have a new LUT attached to it. Of course, non-destructively, you can always just turn it on or off. But that new sidecar file with the new LUT will follow the clip throughout wherever it goes from here on out. So we have massive workflow improvements and massive hardware improvements for the Ursa Mini Pro G2. And it's actually shipping now, and it's available for $69.95.
That's awesome. I'm actually particularly impressed with the shipping now portion of this interview.
Yeah, we started shipping them a couple weeks ago, and they're coming in. They're coming in from Australia. We're all really excited to get them out and see what users are going to do with them.
So specifically, we have a new sensor, I assume?
Yes.
And what are the characteristics of that sensor compared to some of the past sensors?
Well, one of the best things about this sensor, and it's also 15 stops of dynamic range, but essentially the color fidelity of the sensor is much better than the sensor that we had before. It utilizes our brand new Color Science 4.0, which is the best color science we've ever had in our cameras. The Pocket 4K camera also utilizes this new color science. What we were able to do is get much cleaner shadows, crispier highlights. We were able to improve a lot of the highlight roll-off and the shadow retention without adding too much noise into the shadows. What it also allows us to do with the Color Science 4.0 is add higher ISO recording capabilities to the Ursa Mini Pro G2.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I can't wait to try it out. Looks like a great upgrade, and since it's shipping, maybe I'll put it on order. So anything else, any other highlights you want to talk about?
Well, that's pretty much it. What we're excited about, like the Ursa Mini Pro, the Ursa Mini Pro G2 has the internal ND filters, Bluetooth connectivity, lots of controls on the side of the panel for when you're working handheld. You need to be able to control the camera, and of course, interchangeable lens mounts. It'll come with a Canon EF by default, but you can choose to swap that out with a PL or a B4 or even a Nikon F mount if you'd like.
Oh, that's great. Well, awesome. Okay. Well, why don't we go on to the next product you want to talk about?
Right now, let's hop over to the pocket camera. Yeah, so this is the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and one thing you're going to notice is that it has a little bit of an addition today. We released this year at NAB, and I think this one's a little, we're going to leave this one on, but we have the new Pocket Camera 4K battery grip, which is going to go for $295. It's going to be available later this year. And what it does essentially is allows you to add 2 larger Sony batteries into the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Now, what we noticed is that when users were actually using the USB port, the USB-C out to record on SSD flash media, and when they were attaching lights and monitors and all sorts of other devices, that it was sucking up the battery life even more in the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So we wanted to give users a nice, clean option for adding more power to the camera. So now it's going to be able to record for hours before having to change. And you just undo this little screw right here, and it pops right out. And we designed the original Pocket Cinema camera to have a battery door that you can kind of hold the pin and just take the battery door out, and then this will flow right into the camera. Very well. About the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K in general, it's a really brilliant camera. We're utilizing a micro 4/3 lens mount similar to the original Pocket, but it's actually a full 4/3 inch sensor with 13 stops of dynamic range. One of the best parts about the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K is the large 5-inch touchscreen on the back of the camera. It's really large, and when you're shooting handheld, it's perfect for handheld monitoring. The best part about the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, it actually features the same exact operating system as the Ursa Mini Pro models. So it features the full Blackmagic OS, which means I can go in, I can turn on focus peaking, frame guides, grids, zebra, false color, all of that stuff. And if I go over to the menu here, you can see I can choose between ProRes and the new Blackmagic RAW codec, where I can shoot constant bitrate or constant quality, 3.5, 8, and 12:1. And of course, I can shoot in HD, Ultra HD, or even DCI 4K and get that full 4096 by 2160 4K image. Similar to the Ursa Mini Pro, all of the monitoring options, choosing who's going to see what where, whether you're looking at the LCD or looking out of the HDMI, all those options are there. We have setup presets just like the Ursa Mini Pros, and of course you can add your own lookup tables or use the ones that we provide. And just like the Ursa Mini Pro, with Blackmagic RAW 1.3, those LUTs are going to continue the journey with your clips right into post-production. The body is made out of carbon fiber polycarbonate, and we have all these custom function buttons, a shutter dial, which is really great because when you're shooting handheld like this, you're able to quickly adjust either the iris, you can adjust either the iris, or I can switch between adjusting the ISO there, or the color temperature, the shutter speed. Of course, also, these are all controllable via the touchscreen. So I can go, let me go to ISO real quick and turn that up. If I want to, I can change the white balance with your finger right there because it's a big touchscreen. Yeah. There's a high frame rate button just like the Ursa Mini Pro. It's a really wonderful camera, 4 internal microphones for stereo recording, and it has a great air intake and air outtake, because one thing we do with our camera technology, we pay a lot of attention to the sensor temperature to make sure that the sensor doesn't get too hot, so that the camera can adequately record black levels without adding unnecessary noise. And the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K is available now. It's shipping and has been shipping for a while, and it's only $12.95. And like the Ursa Mini Pro models, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K comes with a version of DaVinci Resolve Studio in the box for free that's normally worth $300. And the battery grip is $245, and that will be available later this year.
That's awesome. I actually own a couple of these.
Yeah, do you like them?
I love them. That's why I have 2.
I got to actually shoot with them for the first time about a month ago, and I was blown away. I put it on one of those little gimbals, the little handheld gimbals, and I just had a lot of fun. It's a really beautiful camera.
Yeah, I've actually put this on a very small gimbal with a little bit of counterweighting, and I was actually pretty surprised I could actually get it to work well, because when it's stripped down, it's pretty light.
It is pretty light. It's only 1.5 5-9 pounds, the body by itself without a lens or a battery or anything. But if you have the battery grip and lens and the batteries in there, it's really no more than 4 or 5 pounds, something like that. It's still really light. You can carry this around and shoot all day. If anything, it gives you a little bit more stability to it also. Yeah.
That's awesome. So does this prototype have the ability to remove the batteries so we could see them? The removable Sony batteries?
I'm not sure. Not sure.
I assume that they're removable. You said Sony batteries or Canon batteries?
It uses the Sony batteries. Yeah, they absolutely are removable, but I'm not sure.
I assume it's this thing and then it pulls out somehow.
You guessed correctly. It's funny. I'm talking about it and I'm pitching and I'm like, how do we get the Sony batteries out of there? Because this is my first time actually looking at it myself. So yeah, we pull this out right here. We can see that we have the 2 Sony batteries.
Well, I get the idea.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to take it.
That's okay.
But, it's right in there. It's like a little magazine, and we can just clip that in, twist it. It's actually a really nice locking mechanism. It feels very sturdy for those watching at home. It's actually nice. You're not going to accidentally twist this off. It's a metal construction, so it's good. Yeah.
Awesome. That's actually, so one of my issues was the power because of the internal battery, and so I have all kinds of bolt-on power solutions that I've kind of devised myself and others, but this is going to make it a lot more convenient.
I think it is also. I'm really excited to see how users are going to continue to rig this out with their existing rigs, and if they're going to plan a rig around the battery grip. It'll be cool to see what the users do with it.
I think what's going to happen is they're probably going to have to get different cages to surround the whole battery grip, but that's not a big deal, really. People are buying new cages and making them all the time. But I think just the convenience of having this is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I see people, the first thing I'm thinking of is maybe if I get one of those thin M2 SSD flash drives, maybe you might get some kind of cage or some kind of attachment, or even if it's just Velcro, where you could tape the little M2 on the back right here and then plug right into the USB to record to that. That's something that I think might be cool. We'll see. We'll see what the users do. Yeah.
Do you have time to talk a little bit about the Resolve update?
Yeah, anything for you guys. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's walk right over to this computer right here.
Why don't I, we have a little space, more space now, we're good?
So we've got a lot of new tools in Vinci Resolve 16, but the thing that I'm really excited to tell you about is the new cut page. So we were looking at the edit page and realized that there's more than one culture of editing, and that there was a big culture of editing that really wasn't being served by any nonlinear editor out there. Because if you're looking at the software right here, if I want to select a clip to edit, I have to click on the clip, go over here, select my in point, select my out point on the keyboard, and then I have to spend time getting to the right part of the timeline. I have to zoom out or zoom in, find out where I'm going to accomplish my cut, right? And then I can go over here and either use a keyboard shortcut or drag and drop where I want to put my clip. So we wanted to go back to our experience in manufacturing, which we have a lot of, and what we realized in manufacturing, the rule of thumb is that any movement by any machine or human that isn't directly productive work is waste. And we realized that we were spending up to half of our time editing using the mouse to actually just go ahead and find the thing and set up the user interface to accomplish the actual single edit we want to do. And we have to do that almost every time we actually complete an edit. So in order to solve that, we wanted to get rid of everything that a manufacturing workflow would consider waste and add new tools in that bring back some stuff from the old days that were kind of left by the wayside. We call it the cut page. Most important thing to note is that we still do have this whole edit page right here. We didn't take away the edit page. We didn't move the edit page. We actually added about 100 tools to the edit page this year. But we also have this new way of editing that you can also use if you want to. So you can go right over here to the cut page. And the first thing you're going to notice is that we have this dual timeline. The dual timeline gives you your entire timeline zoomed out all the way on the top with a moving playhead. And then we have a zoomed in cropped view of the timeline with a fixed playhead, the content moving past that fixed playhead. Now the cool part about this is instead of having to click on a specific clip and thinking, where's my B-roll, where's that one shot that I want, is it this clip, is it this clip? The folks that used to work back in the linear days of editing, they would put in a cassette, an hour-long cassette, and it would have hundreds of clips on it, and they could very quickly shuttle through all of those clips to find the right moment. So we introduced a new mode called source tape. And what source tape does is it gives you a view of every single clip in your bin as one long string out. You can see here, I'm filtering through all of the clips in my bin as I'm filtering through here. So now I can really easily find the right clip, go in, set my out point, but now you'll notice I'm in this like really long string of my bins and I have this tiny little sliver in and out point. How am I gonna like properly trim that or decide what I really want to put in and out of the timeline? We have these new tools right here we call the source trimmers. And when I use the source trimmers, you're gonna notice we currently have this zoomed out view of my audio waveform. As soon as I click on it, it zooms in to the point where I'm actually trimming. And our new graphical trimmer says, okay, well now I'm gonna add 10 frames to my in point, and I'm going to push 10 frames to my out point, and then I'll be able to go ahead and take this clip and drag it in here, put it wherever I want, or to use a keyboard shortcut as well. So, and then I can go ahead, jump back to the timeline, and review the cut. So the cut page is all about speed, it's all about efficiency. It's not the page you're going to use for every single job. If you're doing a long-form television show or a whole feature film, or if you're doing something where you have, tens of thousands of clips and smart bins and names and using facial recognition, which is new on the edit page and all that jazz, you're probably going to use the edit page. But for TV commercial editors that don't have the time for all of that finesse, all of those fancy workflows, the cut page is designed to get you in and get you out and get your video out there, published, broadcasted, wherever you're going to put it. And then again, if you want to do a rough assembly on the cut page and you want to continue that work on the edit page to refine and keyframe and animate and do all that good stuff, you just hop over to the edit page and here's our work, here's our timeline, just as we had it in the cut page.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's some of the new stuff in Vinci Resolve 16. We're really excited about it.
That's great. I love that you are developing software that competes with all the other NLEs that have been out there forever, and you're innovating, and at the same time, some of it's somewhat familiar to us editors from a long time ago, so that's kind of cool too. It's not totally different and totally weird, so I really love that aspect.
Thanks. Yeah, we really just wanted to make tools that our customers want to use. We've been doing this editing thing now for 4 years, since version 12 back in 2015, and we've gotten so many feature requests from every single type of editor you could possibly imagine from all walks of life, and every year the end result is the culmination of all of their feedback. We've really cherished that. DaVinci Resolve has now been used to edit offline from start to finish some major independent Hollywood films, some network TV shows. So we're really excited to see every community from students all the way up to Hollywood editors really starting to trickle into the idea that you can edit offline in Resolve. You can share every single job. You can share every single page. You can eliminate the conforming. You can just do it all in one application. So we're really excited at how customers are taking onto it.
That's awesome. Well, I think we've taken enough of your time. So thanks so much, Jason. You've been really wonderful showing us all the new products here, and really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Keith.
You're welcome. Keith Moreau signing off for Tech Move NAB 2019.
It's Blackmagic Design and Jason Druss along with Keith Moreau as we continue our coverage of NAB 2019. Keith, thank you very much. Really great interview. Give us your impressions of what Blackmagic Design had to offer.
Well, they're upgraded their Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K. So the original one was pretty good and a pretty good deal, and they just upped the specs a bit on it. So I think the thing that people might be excited about is a slightly better color science. So there's been a lot of discussion about the color science in the Ursa Minis over the years, and I think they're just trying to approach more and more something like the Canon color science, or something that's more optimal, RE or Canon color science. So it seems like people are happy about it from what I've heard. It's I think a few people actually have it by now by the time of this recording. So we're recording about a month and a half after NAB. But so I guess the big takeaway is on the G2, the Ursa Mini Ursa Pro. I don't even know what it's called. Ursa Pro 4.6 G2, or I think it should be Ursa Mini Pro 4.6 G2, is higher frame rates, much higher frame rates, and hopefully the high speed looks really good. And high speed is actually kind of like the holy grail nowadays, higher speed. So a lot of the 4K cameras just don't have good high speed, basically slow-mo.
Yep.
They can go 60p really well, but then when they start getting to 120p and above, then the video starts not looking very good.
Starts to break down quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets fuzzier, and
Yeah.
there's aliasing and other stuff. So I think they nailed it with the G2. That's my impression. So that would be a good higher speed camera, and it's got up to 300 frames per second.
Yep, at
think,
1080p.
Yeah, so that's pretty darn slow.
Yep.
So people might get it just for that. And then the other thing that's really cool about it is that it actually has a USB-C output for hard drives, kind of like the Pocket 4K.
Yep.
So that's a great addition because now you can just put any applicable hard drive and just plug it in, and then you can, instead of recording expensive CFast cards, you can record this hard drive, which is a great feature.
That's a really great feature because that'll be a little, even though it's probably a little bit bulkier, it's a much better option for, like you said, rather than a CFast card or something.
Yeah. So I guess if I were in the like kind of studio-ish indie, person, I would highly consider this one. I think it's only 6K from what I can understand.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right.
Yeah. So that's pretty cheap. So they talked about that, and then he talked about the new version of Resolve, which has a few interesting features. They've created a new screen that's a little bit more like the fast cutting aspect of Final Cut Pro 10, which is cool. So previously it was a little bit more like the traditional Final Cut 7 / Premiere Pro kind of user interface, which everybody's familiar with and likes, but it's not as fast as the Final Cut 10 interface, which is like you slap it together really quick and still can get good results. So they actually added that. They didn't take anything away, they just added that, and that's really cool. And then I think it has support for other things. It's just better overall. I personally have not tried it. I'm still on Resolve 15, but I'm eager to try 16. And then another great thing, I kind of not sure how great it is, but I think everybody wanted it. They came out with it, and then people were a little disappointed, but they added a battery grip for the Pocket 4K.
Well, how was battery life before the battery grip?
It's always been a complaint to people because it's after 30 minutes, it gets 30 minutes to an hour on one battery, which is actually not terrible. It's not as bad as some cameras, but it's not great, and it's always been a bane of everybody's existence, especially when you just have it's a really nice cinema camera. You want a more battery life out of it.
Right.
So so they added this, just a typical battery grip where you pop it onto the bottom. It goes into the battery bay. There's a thing that kind of probe that goes into the battery bay and powers it that way, and then you put in replacement batteries into it. The thing that's weird is that the replacement battery is not the same battery that goes into the body.
Really?
Yeah. And that's what people have complained about. The body battery is a certain style. It's the Canon style, and the grip battery is a Sony style. So it's not even not a big Sony style.
So you might have bought like 3 or 4 of the original Blackmagic design appropriate 4K batteries, and then you can't use them because you got the battery grip of what you got to get these other ones for.
Yeah, you just have to. Most people have these smaller Sony batteries around because everybody ships them with their stuff, and you always don't even use the small batteries. You use the larger ones. So they require these smaller versions of those batteries because it goes in. These Sony batteries are available in many different sizes. Mm-hmm. They can get super, super big and thick. But this particular battery grip, I think, accepts only the smallest ones, and I think it only accepts 1, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think it accepts 2, but I'll have to look into that. But anyway, I'm not sure if I would be getting it or not.
How much time will that add? I mean, if it's a smaller battery, it doesn't sound like it would really be all that useful.
I guess according to the reports, it maybe doubles the life of whatever.
It's like an hour.
Battery. Yeah, an hour to an hour and a half, I guess.
Oh, well,
so it gets better than nothing.
That's probably pretty good.
Yeah, it makes the camera a little bit heavier.
Yep, and bigger.
A little bit bigger and heavier, which is not necessarily bad.
Yep.
Makes it a little bit taller, and it's already kind of a wide camera, so now you have a big chunk
Yep.
Instead of just a wide chunk, now you have kind of a tall chunk too.
I saw a picture. I saw the video and pictures of it and stuff. It looks like any other battery grip, at the bottom of a SLR or something like that.
Yeah. It's really typical, and I actually, I use battery grips all the time on my GH series cameras and all my other, Sony. I have battery grips for all my different cameras, SLR type cameras. So I sometimes just pop them on because it's nice to have that extra, not have to worry about battery life as much. And they add a little more mass to the camera, make them a little more grippy.
Yep.
So I don't think the pocket needs to be grippier, but anyway, it's kind of expensive. It's $245, maybe doubles the life of the camera, but will I get it? Not sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm sure you have tons of the actual in-camera batteries lying around. So it's just a matter of knowing your workflow and just trying to change out.
Yep.
Okay, good. Well, Keith, thanks a lot. Again,
welcome.
Blackmagic Design. Thank you to Jason Druss, who joined us. Thank you very much. And we will come back with another interview from NAB 2019. So everyone just stay tuned. We'll be right back with more on Tech Move. All right, in our continuing coverage of NAB 2019, we're at the end, Keith. And so thank you very much for all those great interviews with our friends from Blackmagic Design, Atomos, ErgoRig, and Z CAM. All great stuff and very interesting. Let's wrap it up. Keith, final thoughts for the show? What's your thoughts?
Final thoughts. Always a fun time. Not too many, huge announcements for our little neck of the woods of, cinema cameras and, low cost cinema cameras, which are getting lower cost all the time. I think the C200 was just lowered $1,000.
Oh,
good thing I have two of them. They've now been devalued by $2,000. The EVA one was lowered by $1,500 or something recently.
Congratulations.
Yeah, they're all getting cheaper. Maybe because they're not selling that well. I don't know. I think they just need to release new, better ones. But other than that, it's always fun to go. A lot of it's just because Veronica and I can go to Las Vegas and have fun. But
yeah, exactly.
The show is always kind of a fun little thing, and get to meet different people or the same people and kind of continue these relationships. So that part's good.
Good. And you know what? There always are some little surprises from all of these companies that we interact with. So I think, even if there's not some earth-shattering new camera that comes out, usually at least some new feature will be featured and talked about, which is always good to learn about. So
yeah, I think of the things that we had featured on the show, I think the Z CAM company is probably could be a game changer.
Yeah,
I feel like they're making almost like red level cameras for 1/10 the price. And they're not too expensive to accessorize. So I kind of think that's one of the game changers. We'll see in the next year. We'll have another show in another year, and we'll do like a Z CAM special.
Okay.
We'll see. Because they're like the first. I feel like the first mainstream Chinese company to get into the cinema cameras. So
excellent
at this level. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess that's my takeaway.
No, I think it's a good takeaway. You know what we do have to look forward to probably in our next episode, Keith, is your trip to Cinegear.
Yes.
We know that you've already gone and you've already got a bunch of interviews already in the can right now. Mm-hmm. The powers that be need to review it and approve it for broadcast.
Yeah, the Tech Move board of directors is quite slow.
They're slow and they've become quite picky. I've noticed they're very choosy on what actually makes it to the final cut. So anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for our next episode, which will be on the Cinegear 2019 show. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, that's NAB. Before we close out the show, let's talk about a piece of new gear that you've actually had a chance to try. Can you give us a little intro on that, please?
Oh, sure. I think maybe we talked about it at the beginning of the show. It's been so long. But, we talked about the possibilities of external GPUs. And I was thinking, this was because we talked about the
breakout
new
boxes that are out there and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, because we had a long talk about the newly announced Mac Pro. That's going to hopefully come out this year, 2019.
At the cost of like $50 million, which is when all strapped up and ready to go.
Yeah, and I was saying, well, it seems like because of Thunderbolt 3, like it's a really fast interface compared to what was available back in the original Mac Pro. Maybe the fact that Thunderbolt can kind of tie into an eGPU or other breakout boxes has maybe made the need for a modular Mac Pro less important. So I decided to kind of put that to the test, and I was telling you about eGPUs, and there's a few of these that are out there now, and they're primarily used for, getting your kind of lower end, non-desktop system like a MacBook Pro to use an external graphics card that's pretty high powered and get the graphics and just all the stuff better for post-processing, such as editing or effects. And so I decided to put it to the test. So a long time ago, like a year and a half ago, I got a Sonnet technology. It's the Sonnet eGPU. And I think it's, I guess let's just take a second and let me just look up exactly what I got.
Okay.
So I could I could talk about it. I actually got it on Amazon, and I got it refurbished, I think, or used. So I paid a little bit less than the price, but let me just look that up quickly on my Amazon. It's called the Sonnet eGFX breakaway box. The Sonnet eGFX. I can't even say it, but put a link in the show notes. But it's a Thunderbolt 3 to eGPU PCIe card expansion system. So it's a fairly large box. Most of it's just empty space, but there's space for a double space PCI card, and so you can put any PCI card in there that the Mac will accept. So anything that I could put in my Mac Pro, I could put in this, and that's all it has. So it's just got a big power supply. The one that I got is not the highest end one. It's only 350 watts, so there's a limit to what cards you can put in. You can't really put in the most powerful cards, so that's kind of a limitation. But I didn't really know that as much when I got this. I just said, oh, it's kind of a good deal, and I think I'm going to get this. It's been just collecting dust for like a year and a half, but I decided, okay, so I'm just going to buy a compatible low-powered card. So I went ahead and got a compatible card. It was I'm just going to look that up. It was a Radeon, and then just see which. Oh, it was a Radeon Sapphire card. It's the RX 580, 8 gigabyte.
Nice.
Yeah, and Radeon is the AMD brand or the AMD design. There's other brands other than AMD that produce them though, and usually they're a little bit cheaper, but they have the same exact specs usually, or sometimes even better than the original AMD cards. It's kind of weird because these companies are now licensing their designs to other companies to produce versions of their cards that are functionally the same. Anyway, I got this. It wasn't too expensive. The card was less than $200, which is pretty cheap for a graphics card. Consequently, it's not a very good one, but it's the one that had the power rating for my device.
Right.
And so I put it in and tested it out. I tested it out just by using Vinci Resolve, which is a pretty good test for rendering. And because they do have Vinci Resolve is a lot of options for choosing what GPUs you're going to use. It lists the internal one on my iMac Pro, which is the Radeon Vega 64, which is a pretty high-end one already. 16 gigabytes. And then it also shows up this other card. And it's actually amazingly easy. You just put the card in and you just plug Thunderbolt in, and that's it. And then it shows up. It's kind of amazing.
Literally plug and play.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to tell the Mac it's there or anything. It just shows up.
That's
which
great.
Is pretty cool.
That's really great.
Yeah, I think that that's only available for the last 2 Mac OSs. I don't think earlier ones will do that, but if you're on a modern Mac OS, it should work. So anyway, so I put that stuff in. I was doing some stuff with Resolve because I had some raw files I needed Resolve to deal with, and I'd done a project where I was converting the raw to some format that Adobe Premiere could use, because I'm still unfortunately on Adobe Premiere most of the time, and so Adobe Premiere doesn't actually take Blackmagic raw files, so I have to actually process. I don't think
so. You kind of have to convert them to something that it recognizes.
Yeah. So I was converting them to ProRes. So I was doing the color correction and stuff to get the dynamic range back and get them to be pretty close to the right colors, and then I was converting them to ProRes. And so I did a fairly short file. So I did the test, and I'll give you the numbers right now. So it was a pretty large, pretty long test. So with the iMac Pro built-in Vega 64, it was a total of 37 minutes and 30 seconds.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And was that surprising to you?
No, that was I'd been experiencing that. It was about a half-hour clip, so it's just a little bit longer than real time. And I was doing a lot of stuff to it. I was doing denoising and some of the things. That's pretty processor intensive.
Okay.
So that was using that, and I could see that there's a little meter in the Mac's activity meter that shows how much the GPUs are being used. And so the Radeon, the external GPU Radeon, was at 0, and then the built-in one was at full, like 100%. So I could see it was actually using those, which is pretty cool. See that visually. That's the activity monitor is a pretty cool utility on the Mac.
That is neat. Yeah.
Yeah, and then but here are the numbers that were a little bit surprising. So with both, because you can actually use two GPUs at once, and actually if you had more of these, you could use multiple GPUs. So you could actually spread your workload across multiple GPUs, which theoretically should be faster, right?
Yeah, that you would think.
Yeah. So with the original Vega 64 is 37 minutes and 30 seconds. With both, it was 46 minutes and 12 seconds.
Give me that again. How much was that?
It was actually longer using both. And then with only the Radeon, not using the built-in iMac's GPU, it was actually 1 hour and 18 seconds. So basically, adding my eGPU made everything slower.
Congratulations.
By a big percentage, like 25%. So if you want an eGPU of using this Radeon 580, you can expect a 25% speed reduction.
That's so funny.
So I promptly packaged up the stuff I got, the Radeon, and I returned it. So
congratulations.
Yeah, because I don't need another paperweight.
You don't. I mean, usually in the tech move world, we usually do like getting things that are much slower and older and really debilitate our production levels. So that's good.
Yeah,
good.
Pretty much. I think at some point I will upgrade the power supply in this eGPU box, because you can buy, as you know, you were a PC builder and stuff.
Yep.
You can buy these power supplies, and they're not that expensive.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
and they're very powerful.
Yeah. So I could get a power supply that could take anything, and I could put it into this box. I could just take out the old wimpy power supply and put a new one in. It's almost like a 10-minute job. So at some point I'll spend $100 or what so dollars for this more powerful power supply, put it in, and then order a super high-end Radeon card.
Yeah.
You know, like another Vega, or they have even some others that might be faster. They're kind of expensive. They're like in the $600 to $800 range.
Yeah.
So at this point I'm not like lusting for that, so I'll wait a while. But at some point I will do that, because it's about $1,000 investment for me to do this, and probably a lot of trouble. And then, who knows, maybe it'll still won't do anything. But
Yeah.
I think that's the only way I'm going to get anything faster,
Yeah.
getting better performance.
The very interesting. So you're still without a great solution at this particular moment.
I'm still just thinking that the only way for me to even make this eGPU work with my current system and make it better is to get a super high-end Radeon card.
Yeah.
So that's my conclusion.
Good.
I don't know for sure. I'll have to at least upgrade the power supply and then buy one of these cards, and that's like $1,000, which
Yeah.
$1,000 in a couple hours of time.
Then you're getting closer to that new Mac Pro with all the dough that you're investing in this thing.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
you're getting closer and closer to that Mac Pro.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Whatever.
So I think the best way for me to increase my speed is to ditch Adobe Premiere, though. So
Yeah. Well,
I think that's the best way.
it's funny because hasn't the Tech Move podcast been based upon ditching Premiere Pro or Premiere just period?
Pretty much for at least 5 years.
Right.
There was a little honeymoon period where I was saying, this is so much better than Final Cut 7.
That's right.
But then that's...
But
as soon as
Bloom is
they
off
went
the
to-
rose. Bloom is off the rose there.
Bloom is off the road. As soon as they got into the subscription model,
Yeah. Then it all changed.
and we started having to pay $60 or more a month for software that's less stable and slow.
Yeah.
That's when the bloom started
Yep.
fading.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the jump the shark moment. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
No, that's great.
I don't know if they'll ever pay for that move, but who
Yeah.
knows?
That'll be good.
Well,
Well,
we are currently not being sponsored by Adobe, but
and probably
Adobe.
never will be with the way we talk about it so highly and respectedly.
sorry, Adobe.
So, anyway, good. Well, okay. Hey, Keith, we're going to close out the show, but there is one more thing I'd like to congratulate you on. And our very own Keith Moreau was a special guest of Zacuto. And our friends over at Zacuto. And ladies and gentlemen, you're very familiar with them, the makers of really great equipment that we've often featured here on this very podcast. Zacuto USA invited our very own Keith Moreau to be a special guest / panelist on a Facebook Live episode that they do. It's called Zacuto Live, and it is available right now on the Zacuto USA Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/Zacuto USA. Zacuto spelled with a Zacuto USA. And Keith was invited to be part of a fun little episode / segment called Desert Island Camera Bag, of which Keith was supposed to give his thoughts on what he would take in his camera bag to a desert island. And let's just say this, that's where the hilarity ensues, okay? Keith, it was a great appearance. I appreciate you doing that and also spreading the Tech Move Nation to the world.
Thank you.
I thought you did a great job through the interview. It was a fun little piece.
Yeah, the hardest part was having to get up kind of early and be able to
be coherent, be
coherent and
Yeah.
focus on the screen.
No,
without my glasses.
That is, and you know what? You pulled it off beautifully. You pulled it off beautifully, and you did a great. I don't want to give too much away. Maybe we'll give it away on the next episode here. But ladies and gentlemen, we do encourage you to check out Keith's live appearance again on Facebook.com/Zacuto USA. Now, at the time of this recording, Zacuto puts these live Facebook episodes on their own page. But as of this recording, they have yet to do that. So I would say probably in the next few days, if not another week, you can also find it on the Zacuto.com page and look under their, I think it's called, hang on, let me pull it up here. It's called their web series tab. that has a bunch of things on there. So you'll probably be able to catch Keith directly on the Zacuto page. So, Keith, I think that's going to do it. It's been nothing but NAB. It's been a little bit of Mac. It's been a little bit of other things here and there. And but what we do want to let you folks know about is our next episode is surely going to be about Cinegear 2019, because we have a bunch of those things ready to go for you. So, listen. We're glad that you listened to NAB 2019, which is now in the can. But we'll be out shortly with our Cinegear episode. So, Keith, any parting words before we log off here?
No, well, actually, maybe yes. I think it was 7 years ago this month that we came out with our first episode or second episode. So it's been a while since our last episode recording, so I think we may have bypassed our 7-year anniversary. But we've actually been doing this for 7 years.
What a momentous occasion. You know what's so great, Keith, is that we've been doing this for 7 years, yet have about 10 episodes. So that says a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're averaging maybe 6 to 10 episodes a year.
Right.
So this year we might be down a little bit on our average.
Right.
We've so far come up with maybe 2 episodes, but maybe we'll push out some more quicker. But anyway,
I doubt it. But yeah, it's good to mention that to the listening audience. So that's fabulous. That's great.
But I do think just from an amount of content, maybe not amount of content, but hours of content.
Yeah,
I think we're one of the top podcasts out there.
And we appreciate everyone for listening, and we appreciate everyone for hanging in there with us in our steady yet sporadic output for these shows. So thank you very much for listening to us. We greatly appreciate it. But that is great. Okay. Well, happy anniversary.
Yes, to you too.
It's been a great 7-year run. We look forward to another 7 years, if not 7 weeks, which will be good. That'll be good to accomplish that. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you know how to reach us, techmovepodcast.com. You can also reach us via all the other places like iTunes, which we still would love some reviews from you guys. Of course, only positive ones.
Yes.
Give us the 20 stars if that's available.
Yes.
Ratings, which would be good, and also contribute. How do they contribute, Keith? I can't remember.
Patreon.com/techmovepodcast.
Excellent. That's a way to help us out and keep the lights going here. So we greatly appreciate it. So, folks, hey, I have been Rod Louie, and with me is Keith Moreau. Keith, thanks so much for being with us today. Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to Tech Move, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.